Coming up, Freddie Young from Full Moon Reviews is on. We'll be looking at Punisher Warzone. So really fun conversation there. A movie that I've been meaning to cover on the podcast for a while. So I was really stoked that he was game to discuss that one. So that will be coming up in just a few minutes. Next week, we've got Mitch from the Video Vacuum back on, and we'll be looking at Animal Instincts. So erotic thriller, but also on that softcore porn side of erotic thriller as well. So going to be a fun conversation there. He found that one on the Internet Archive of all places. I'd never seen anything on the Internet Archive before, so that was a fun one. And then, we actually have most of October mapped out. So the week after that, Ty from Comeuppance will be back on, and we'll be looking at two movies, as we usually do. We'll be looking at Red Right Hand, which is a new one with Orlando Bloom and Andy McDowell. It's on Hulu. And then Cash Out, a new Travolta one on Hulu as well. So keep an eye out for that. Also, our spotlight on a fight is going to be on the end fight in Blade between Blade and Steven Dorff. So Wesley Snipes and Steven Dorff. So that was a fun one as well. And then the week after that, Scott Murphy is back to talk more Steven Seagal. We'll be looking at The Foreigner. So kind of a bonkers one there, but a lot of fun conversation to be had on that one as well. So keep an eye out for all of those. Then in terms of DTVC Extra, not this week, but the week after, we will finish up the look at the Die Hard series with the two later sequels. What is it, like Live Free and Die Harder, or Die Harder? And then Die Hard, no, not Die Hard with a Vengeance. A Good Day to Die Hard, right? Die Hard with a Vengeance was part 3. So I'll get the titles right. Again, it's just so much easier just to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. But I guess by the mid-90s they had stopped using numbers. Is that right? Does that make sense? That they didn't want to use Die Hard 3, they had to use Die Hard with a Vengeance. So anyway, it's a lot easier for me to manage if I've got numbers, but unfortunately that's not always the case. But look out for that, not this Thursday, but the Thursday after. And then I think the next DTVC Extra we'll do, I think it's going to be the Beverly Hills Cop series. That's my plan there, because 3 of the 4 are on Paramount, and then the new one is on Netflix. So I think that'll be an easy one. I can do that as a kind of a 2-parter there. So be on the lookout for that as well. Yeah, and then in terms of the site, it is Hall of Fame month. We're into October already, which it feels like it was just yesterday that I was doing Hall of Fame posts for last year. And I can't even remember who we put in the Hall of Fame this past year. But anyway, if you look on the upcoming reviews watch list, you're going to see some movies that aren't coming up next, because this Saturday we're going to be doing Chief of Station, and I haven't watched it yet. So Chief of Station, that's going to be the one that gets Jesse V. Johnson in the Hall of Fame. So we'll put him in there. Yeah, and then in terms of other ones, we're going to look to do Lethal Ladies Return to Savage Beach. That one's going to be the one that we do for Andy Sedaris and kind of Donna Spear, but kind of not Donna Spear, because I was looking at it and she obviously she just has file footage in that. I thought if I'm going to put her in the Hall of Fame, I probably shouldn't just do that. Like, I probably shouldn't just do some movie that just has file footage of her. So I'm going to do, was it Click the, it's something, the serial killer, it's Click the Calendar Girl Killer. That's what it's called. I had it written down, and Click the So it's directed by Ross Hagen, but it's got Donna Spear. She's like right in the beginning. It's on YouTube, so I'm going to check that one out. So yeah, we'll definitely give that one a look. And then the one that I was going to do for Keone Waxman, it's listed as Serial Bomber on Countdown. That's what it is. Countdown/Serial Bomber with Lori Petty. That's like an earlier one from him that's on Tubi. So that's what we'll be doing for Keone Waxman. So yeah, that's our month of Hall of Fame inductions. So Jesse V. Johnson, Keone Waxman, Donna Spear, and Andy Sedaris are all going to the Hall of Fame this year. So be on the lookout for that. I think that is everything. Also, I did record a little while back with John Cross from After Movie Diner. We did Soldier and The Kiss, Joanna Pacula thriller from the late 80s. So be on the lookout for that. If you're not subscribed to his Patreon, you should be. You can subscribe for as low as $1 a month, but even more. If you pay more, you get more perks. But you'll get the video version, so you get to see me in action on video if you do the Patreon one. You can see with my Moxie hat in all its glory there. So check that out. I am thinking about doing more video myself. I was looking to I was kind of practicing a little bit with my phone to see if maybe I could make some videos for Instagram and YouTube, just because, especially YouTube with the podcast being on there, it's gotten a little bit more engagement. So I wanted to see if I could find some ways to maybe put some stuff on there. We'll see what happens. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, one last thing. My newest novel, Don's House in the Mountains, still available on Amazon Kindle, Kindle Unlimited. All of my novels are on there, in fact. And so you can find the link to my author page here in the podcast description. Looking for something to read. It's getting close to that time of year, right, where it's nice to kind of curl up with a good book. When it's rainy, there's like all colorful leaves on the ground outside, and you can kind of relax on a Saturday or Sunday, especially on a Sunday if your NFL team is doing poorly, right? Or you want to read something during the commercials. Don's House in the Mountains is a good one for that. It's a good wintry book, but all my novels are there and available. So definitely pick something up there. And again, we're hoping December for my newest one, Nadia and Aiden, which should be around that time. It'll be a novella, so it's not as big of a read as the other ones. All right. Well, with that, why don't we have John Cross from After Movie Diner and Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures playing our theme song, and then when we come back, Freddie Young from Full Moon Reviews will be on, and we'll be looking at Punisher Warzone. All right, welcome back to the DTVC Direct-to-Video Connoisseur Podcast. I got to start. For some reason, I was giving myself the wrong name for my podcast. But anyways, so welcome back, and welcome back, a very special guest, Freddie Young from Full Moon Reviews.
Nice being back.
Yeah, it's like I always butcher the openings. I don't know why that is. I guess I get ready to go and then do it, and it always happens. So.
I was going to ask you how you were doing, but you seem very flustered right now. So
the openings, the openings always do that. I don't know why I mess up the openings. I think it's becoming like a running joke on the podcast that I just blow the opening of it. So but I think this is gonna be a really fun one here. I already hear the cops in the background here, so this kind of gives a good ambiance to the movie we're going to be discussing here, Punisher Warzone, which dude, the sound just kind of run right past me there, but yeah, because I think, I don't know about you, but I think, and we'll talk about it more, in a bit, but I think this is one of those ones that, especially for action movie fans or fans that like lower budget or a little more lesser known movies. This is up there for a lot of people as one of their favorite comic book movies.
Yeah, I haven't watched this since it came out, to be honest. Like when you suggested this one, I was like, this is a weird suggestion, like no one really talks about Punisher Warzone. Everybody talks about like the Dolph Lundgren one from '89 or the Thomas Jane one from 2004. But yeah, this one kind of flew under the radar when it came out. It didn't do very well in the box office, unfortunately. I remember enjoying this when it came out. I thought it was the best of the three, of the movies anyway. And I still think this is the best of the three of the movies that came out, The Punisher. I think the TV show Punisher is better than this.
Yeah.
But I think this is a very underrated, not only an underrated comic book movie, but underrated low budget action film. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but I almost feel like with Punisher Warzone that, like, remembering that comic that was it John Romita Jr. who drew like the Warzone comic in the early 90s. And I almost feel like his Punisher looks the closest, like Ray Stevenson looks the closest to his Punisher.
Yeah, very boxy looking. The slick back hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that I always felt. Now, you mentioned the John Bernthal Punisher, which I think for me, it's almost like if you were going to say who is the best Punisher for the Charlie Cox, Defenders, Jessica Jones, that whole thing, who would you want to be Punisher for that? I think Bernthal is perfect for, like, I wouldn't want Ray Stevenson in that Punisher, I don't think.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I had read recently was that because Spider-Man 4, right? And of course, the interesting thing about comic book movies is when they hit the fourth movie, that's always like kind of uncharted territory. There's not many that get through four successfully. So Spider-Man 4, Marvel, I guess I'd read that Marvel wanted to make it a follow-up to this upcoming new Daredevil season. So it would be like Spider-Man, the Tom Holland Spider-Man teaming up with with Matt Murdock, with with Charlie Cox for like a street level kind of adventure, trying to combat the Kingpin. Punisher would
Right.
probably be, John Bernthal's Punisher would probably be there. So that was one idea that they had. But then Sony is saying, no, we want to do a follow up to this Venom movie that we're kind of closing the door on. Bring Tom Hardy in and have them team up and fight against the big god Null that's going to be introduced in this movie. It sounds like they think maybe Sony's winning, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Uh, I feel like these last few Spider-Man movies have been really good because of Marvel, not because of Sony,
Right.
to be honest. If you just seen the track record that Sony has had since having this franchise, Madam Web, Morbius, Craven is coming out, which looks, I mean, it's not Craven. I'm sorry, it's not. Venom, I think, is probably the best thing they've done outside of the Spider-Man stuff, to be honest. But even like the last Venom with Carnage was not that great. But yeah, I feel like the street level thing is actually a fresh idea for Spider-Man. Because I feel like what he's done since joining the MCU has been like these outworld like adventures, Avengers, Infinity War, Endgame, No Way Home, Far From Home with Mysterio, that whole big mess that happened. It's I feel like it should be a little bit more grounded this time around. Like I like the whole him trying to like find himself again because now, spoiler alert, no one really knows who he is as
Right.
Spider-Man, Peter Parker anymore. The whole memory erase thing. Yeah, I feel like that's the way it should go. Like let him kind of find himself again as his own hero without the Iron Man stuff, the Avenger stuff, and just be like this grittier, character without having to like sacrifice the humor, the youthfulness of it. I think Spider-Man Daredevil is a new idea, live screen. I think Punisher, you could get Elektra in there. You get a whole lot of people involved. Kingpin, the Rose, who else? Tombstone. All these characters that haven't really been used yet. I think that would be a great introduction to them.
Yeah, exactly. They were mentioning the Magia as well, which I
Yeah.
think this movie refers to them a bit, but yeah, that's
Mhm.
another what they put in there. I think it's almost like I think Sony, like you said, Sony has not had a lot of wins, and I think they almost feel like if they let Marvel do the street level thing, that essentially it'd be Marvel, using Spider-Man to sell, Daredevil, all of that, the Disney Plus stuff, and giving them more of a win. But I agree with you too. I mean, I think again, that fourth movie is uncharted territory. Like we saw recently with Thor, it didn't work out as well. The Love and
Mhm.
Thunder, it's almost like the follow up to Ragnarok. I think it was almost like
Rock.
they did
Yeah.
more. He did even more Ragnarok when maybe we needed to go in a different direction. And I
Yeah.
almost feel like it's the same thing here, where it's like, okay, you've made it through three successful movies. Now with the fourth movie, because I don't think Street Level is playing it safe so much, but as like you said, it's giving it a fresh look on it that I think fans would appreciate at this point.
I think it needs to be a darker story. I feel like he's in a place where he has to get out of that darkness. At the end of No Way Home, he's in a very bad spot. No one remembers him. You know what I mean? I feel like to go from that to like, hey, let's go to outer space and fight these symbiotes and Craven and Rhino and all these other characters. Bring in Manuel for whatever reason. Morbius, like it makes no sense.
Right.
It really doesn't.
No, well, 'cause I think what it is, like you said with Sony, they've had this bad run recently, but yet that the one the big Spider-Man movie that they made, the most recent one, pulls in like 1.9 billion. I mean, I think it's the only non-Avengers. It's the highest grossing non-Avengers MCU movie,
Right.
and Sony's like, well, we haven't gotten any wins like that. That's the only win we've gotten, so we need to keep getting more wins like that. Whereas I think like Marvel could stand for a street level Spider-Man to only pull in like 750 million. Like they would be okay with that, especially if it brought more eyes to Disney Plus and all of that. They could live with that, especially with just what happened, just with Deadpool and Wolverine. But like Sony is like desperate, I think. And but I think also too, Disney, once they start seeing the dollar signs that Sony's gonna project or think that they can get, they're gonna end up being on board too, I think.
I have a feeling it's probably be like a mix of both premises, but I feel like if Sony really wants to make that money, that investment, they have to go with Marvel here
Yeah.
because I feel like their brand right now is not great, and to put like someone like Venom or Morbius in their movie is like, do you really want to see that? Like, it's not real. I mean, Venom and Spider-Man is cool, I guess, that we haven't really seen that interaction. And Tom Hardy's a great actor, so it's not going to be a problem. But I feel like Morbius, Madam Web, Craven, these characters are not over. And people don't really care about these characters at all. You already did the Sinister Six in No Way Home. You got Green Goblin, Doc Ock, all these characters. There's no point in doing that again. Um, I feel like the Daredevil route is probably the way to go. Um, and maybe give like Wesley Snipes something to do with Blade. I mean, he was like a big character in Deadpool and Wolverine. So I feel like why not? Give him like a finale or something to Spider Man.
Yeah, I mean that's another piece of this too, right? Is that with Deadpool Wolverine, it's almost like they've opened the door to a lot of these. And I know I think part of the idea was like I think for Jennifer Garner, she was like I want to do over with Elektra because I don't think that movie wasn't made well and it wasn't her fault.
Right.
But she wanted to do over, and of course, Channing Tatum, he wanted just to do, right? Because he didn't even get to make his movie, so he just wanted
Right.
to do. But with Snipes, it felt like it was more like a like they were honoring the fact that he was really the first.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless you count Howard Duck, he was really the first like big screen. I mean, I guess some of them had theatrical releases abroad, but the first big screen
Successful
American
one.
release. Yeah, and the most successful, exactly, the first successful one too. So it's like instead of it being like he needed a proper ending, it was more like, hey, people shouldn't forget about him. Like there's no MCU without Blade. I think which I thought was a really good homage to him.
And it also hurts Mahershala Ali because he's trying to get his Blade movie off the ground. And I don't think that's happening at all. I think that's DOA at this
Yeah.
point. So if he wants to be Blade, put him in the Spider-Man movie. I guess that's the way to go, and then go from there if it works out. I mean, I think they have so many options due to the Spider-Man thing, but I feel like doing like a Sony verse Spider-Man, it's not gonna work. I don't think it's gonna
No.
work.
Well, because I think what it is, I think Sony wants their Sonyverse, at least the Venom, they want him in the MCU, maybe as a way to like, keep making because yeah, it's like you said, like they can't make the right decisions. They just seems to like whatever it is that they're doing with this stuff, it's not working. And it's almost like it's almost like, yeah, Marvel, please help us make money. We need you to make
Yeah.
money for us.
It's tough. I feel like it's gonna be a compromise. Maybe they'll put Venom in the new one, and he'll be the only Sony character in there, and he could still do the Daredevil stuff. I guess he could still do that. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting because we have now Tony Stark or Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom now. I don't know how they're gonna do that because there's so many ways you can do that character. They're gonna do Secret Wars. That's the last of this saga that's coming up. Um, we're on uncharted territory right now because I feel like Deadpool Wolverine pretty much changed everything in terms of like what we're expecting to happen. Because even the way that ended, I was like surprised, like it ended the way it did. Um, so yeah, let's see what happens. We still have like Fantastic Four coming out. We still have the rest of the Sony stuff like Venom 3. We have Craven. Let's see what happens. Who knows? I mean, maybe they'll make money, maybe they won't. It's a toss up right at this point because I don't know. I feel like they were a better spot than DC, so they should be happy about that at least, I guess.
Right. Well, because DC, right, we've got this new Joker coming out, which I
Oh,
saw the response in Venice was tepid, which normally I don't think people care what the film festivals say, but I think for people that were like skeptical of what this new Joker was going to be, hearing that it didn't do well at the film festival is like, okay, that sounds about right, and it's like yeah, I think it scared a lot of people. It scared me. I probably wasn't going to see it in the theater anyway. I would have probably just seen it on Max eventually.
mhm.
But when I saw that they went from 50 something million to 200 million, and Todd Phillips, he's still the Hangover and the old school guy. So it does it made me a little nervous when I saw that. I don't know about you.
This is my thing. So I had a whole bunch of friends that were so excited about this movie, and we would go have like a group like theatrical thing the opening night. I'm the only one now that's going
Oh,
because
jeez.
because everyone saw, oh, it's a musical. Oh, that there was maybe some songs that's just like it's not a musical, but maybe just some songs in the movie. And then they pretty much confirmed it is a musical. It's 15 songs. Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga are singing in the movie. So I guess to express emotions they can't do through dialogue for whatever reason. That's the excuse they're making. So people are turned off. They're like, I don't want
Yeah.
to watch this. It's a 2 hour musical. Like, I mean,
Wait, can you imagine?
and
Because oh, go
and
ahead.
then and then Lady Gaga's not even like the Harley Quinn we know.
Oh, right. Because I
They,
saw she's
they
not a psychiatrist, right?
no, it's supposedly like they already said none of the characteristics that we love of Harley Quinn are in this movie. So I'm like, why is she named Harley Quinn?
Yeah.
So it's like all this news has been coming out, and then the reviews happen, and it's just like, I'll take one for the team. I'll let you know if it's good or not.
Yes.
Because I'm gonna watch it. I have A-list, AMC A-list. I'm gonna use it
Oh,
anyway.
right. Yes.
I already have
Yeah.
a ticket. I already have a ticket for it. I'm ready to go. So I'll tell you this: when I bought my ticket, that theater was pretty much empty. The showing, no one bought anything. I'll be surprised this makes like 60-70 million dollars that weekend.
Wow. Yeah, which is just amazing when you think about how just completely just out of no yeah, you say out of nowhere, but I think when when that first Joker movie came out, it was almost like this signal to the studios like, hey, don't just keep making the same movie, which I think for the MCU, I think they didn't heed the warning soon enough. I
Yeah,
think when you look back at the first phase, at least, I think for me, I feel like the first couple of phases of the MCU, they weren't like these standard movie, like you couldn't just predict everything that was going to happen. Like like there's some more character development, all that. Like the critique that Martin Scorsese made about how these movies aren't about people or about characters. I don't think it was true for the first two phases, but then as they kind of get moving with the Infinity War piece, it starts to kind of feel like, okay, yeah, I
yeah,
kind of know everything that's going to happen. I know what, all the beats, all that stuff. And it felt
mm,
like, okay, maybe the Joker will change that. And I think maybe part of it was because they already had movies in the hopper and then there was the pandemic. So they just didn't quite heat it enough. But it seems like now at least that Marvel has figured it out. Like, okay, we can't just keep, at least Deadpool Wolverine was not the same movie that they had been making all those times. And in that sense, it was a success. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
yeah. Honestly, I feel like it really started with Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I think that's when it really
Yeah,
started. Because that movie was you think it's like a happy-go-lucky team, and it's a very dark movie, very depressing, very bleak. The ending is a happy ending, but like the whole animal stuff is like very like not Marvel at all. Um, and then the Marvels, which was like a 90-minute movie, which is like unlike Marvel at all to do
right.
something like that. People hate it because it's woke, it's women, whatever. It's a good movie that no one saw,
Right.
but and then you have like you said, Deadpool Wolverine. Yeah, I think they're starting to now figure it out. I think the Jonathan Majors thing pretty much pushed that along too. I think
Yeah.
Kathy, yeah, he had to change course with Kang. That wasn't working. So we get Robert Downey Jr. back for like $100 million for 2 movies. He
Right.
played Doctor Doom. I don't blame him for doing it.
Right. Right. He won his
um,
Oscar. He's good,
yeah, he's like, yeah, I got my shit, good. I got my
right.
award, I'm good.
Yeah,
Who cares?
exactly. Yeah.
This is my retirement plan.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I think they're getting it. I think DC, hopefully they're getting it. This we have to wait till the Superman thing comes out. I think the Penguin's really good. I haven't watched it yet.
No, I haven't seen it yet
Um,
either. I still have to watch the Batman, so I was going to watch that
oh,
first, and
it,
so I'm
it,
gonna.
it's 3 hours. Yeah,
Right.
it's a commitment, but it is a great movie.
Yeah.
So I feel like the Batman stuff in DC always works. I think they never really don't really fail with that. I just think like Superman and Green Lantern, that stuff they got to really work on. Yeah, I feel like the comic book industry right now in terms of movies is in a very it's shaky right now. I think it could go either way. I think Marvel, like you said, is kind of getting back on track slowly. But I feel like now we're going to like Secret Wars, and I feel like they're gonna go right back into this whole like instead of a standalone movie, let's create a universe.
Yeah.
So this is not a standalone movie; it's like part one of a larger film. So I think that's the issue. It's like homework. You know what I
Right.
mean? You gotta like study this movie. Oh, this is why this is done. So we go learn about this in this other movie, and it's just like it's a lot. So
Well, because you make a great point about the Marvels, because the Marvels is like I think objectively, I think you can even say it's a good movie. Like I think whether
Mhm.
everybody's tastes are different, but I enjoyed it too. I had a lot of fun
Yeah,
with it.
yeah.
Um, but I almost felt like if you're doing Captain Marvel, like doing her movies, thinking about like Iron Man, sort of following a similar track. It's almost like the Marvels almost was like should have been part three. Like maybe there needed one more like Captain Marvel where she can be developed more. And again, like you mentioned about the homework piece, maybe people won't feel if all the people feel like they have to do is watch the first movie because it's a sequel, then maybe more people would have come to it. But I mean, still have those other characters, right? Still have uh, was it Ms. Marvel and
Mhm.
and Monica Rambeau. You can still have them, but
Right.
maybe I don't know. I that movie. I really like that movie, but I almost kind of felt like like you know. It was almost like the team up came too quick. Maybe I don't know. That was kind of my feeling on it. And not that I
The thing
didn't
is,
like the movie, but
the thing it required you to have a Disney Plus subscription and watch WandaVision and Miss Marvel. And I think a lot of people did not want to commit obviously the time watching TV shows.
yeah,
And I think that's the problem. I think like you're right. There should have been like a middle movie in between where you kind of introduce those characters and then do the team up in the third one. But they were rushing it. They were rushing through it. They thought they were Teflon at that point.
oh yeah,
It was they were already committed to that stuff. I've got like Agatha all along as I haven't watched that either. I heard mixed things about that. Um, then I already talking about like a Scarlet Witch movie's coming out. Vision's getting his own show now.
yeah,
I mean, I feel like they're going back to that formula again because now they're back on an uptick.
right.
So it's like, okay, we're good now. We can kind of go back to what we were doing. There's no COVID, there's no pandemic. The box office is a little stronger now. Let's do what we've been doing. And I feel like fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. You know what I mean? That's what I am more supposed to say about Daredevil because I feel like that's so outside of all that.
Yeah,
Um, and I thought Echo. I recently watched Echo. I thought that was actually pretty good.
yeah, I
Um,
agree.
because it was different. It was outside of that whole superhero stuff. So I need more of that at this point.
Well, because you make a great point about Batman, because one of the things, and I think probably one of the biggest failings of the DC extended universe was that they only used Ben Affleck in
Mm-hmm.
like a couple of team up movies, but he didn't get his own movie. Like they
Right.
probably should have given him his own movie. But I think the thing that makes Batman so great is he's a street level character, and it's one of the things that Marvel's been having trouble with is that I mean Captain America: Winter Soldier, it felt like a street level action movie, but
Mm-hmm.
even that is dealing with the kind of all of these bigger things that aren't really street level kind of movies. Whereas, you watch like Daredevil, you watch those seasons, or the Luke Cage, series, of which I really love on there. There's bigger things like people with superpowers and stuff, but there's not like the whole cosmic kind of all over the top thing. And I think like that's a good thing. I think it's an area of Marvel that they haven't they do well in their comics, but they hadn't other than the Netflix series they hadn't really done it well in the MCU. And I think, like you said, the Echo series, it's a different thing too, because it's not only just street level, but it's kind of like a rural thing, outside of like New York City. Yeah, there are areas that they haven't explored enough yet that I think, maybe maybe if this Daredevil, if this series goes really well, and I don't know what success is for them, if it's got to be like a button, more subscribers, or if they can just tell from the streams, that people are watching it, that maybe and who knows? I mean, I don't know when they start developing, because like one of the things I heard about Spider-Man 4 is that Tom Holland's supposed to have a cameo in. I'm sorry, yeah, Tom Holland's supposed to have a cameo as Spider-Man in this next Venom movie that is supposed to signal us that they're gonna go the Sony route as opposed to the MCU route, or the Disney, Marvel route. But maybe if this Daredevil movie does really well, they could show Sony like, hey, this is where the money is.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Yeah, I feel like characters like Batman, Daredevil, they work because they're human. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? They're not like they don't get they I mean Daredevil has powers, but he doesn't like it's not like Superman or Spider Man or Iron Man, where he just creates, he's a genius, he creates these suits and just
right.
flies and shoots weapons. It's very like grounded reality. And I also feel like Batman works because his villains prop him up too. I think the villains are so well crafted in Batman that it adds to that story. Joker, and you have Penguin, Riddler, Catwoman. All these characters are just he has a great supporting cast, and I feel like a lot of these superhero movies, you have a great hero, but your villains are weak.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Spider-Man works because his villains are so good. I think Captain America worked because he was a more grounded character and he was more human, and you kind of understood where he was coming from. He was a man at a time.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like a lot of people, even young kids, feel like they're like people out of time. Things change so quickly. Technology, social media, all this stuff just comes really quick and goes real quick. So I feel like characters like that, there need to be more characters like that. And I feel like like I said, this whole Venom thing they want to do with Spider-Man. I mean, we've done this before and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm blaming Sony for that because they wanted Venom in that Spider-Man 3 movie. But yeah, I feel like does anyone really want to see that? No one went to see him versus Carnage.
Right.
Like, does anyone really care? I mean, I don't know.
No, you make a great point there, and I think to that point, thinking about like what was it, like cover some of some of the bigger Marvel movies that came out. I was going to say about about the MCU movies. I can't think of it. I completely lost. I don't know how I lost my train of thought like that. Sorry about that. But yeah, because I was thinking about with that decision between Marvel and whether they do the Marvel way or something like you said. We've been there, we've done that with the kind of the bigger thing, and I think too. Thinking of like these big characters like Thor and everybody, like I wonder even with Thor, like is that kind of one of those things where like people have just you can only do so much with a Thor, you can only do so many things with that character that like they did something unique with the with Ragnarok, and I was like, okay,
Mhm.
well let's let Taika Waititi do it again. Let's see what he but it's like then people are like, well, we already saw it the first time and it was kind of a little bit more fun with like Jeff Goldblum and whatever that we were kind of like,
Right.
okay, it's not so much here, but yeah, like to your point, we've seen the kind of the bigger thing already, and the street level thing, like you said, that's what I was going to say was that like Chris Evans, like you said, he's great as this man at a time. He really kind of sells the fact that he's like from 1940s Brooklyn. Like it,
Right.
which I would not have expected because I watch like Mad Men and it's like you watch Mad Men and like yeah, John Hamm does a good job, but like you'll see like he'll be on a date with a 20 something who she sounds like she's from she was born in the mid 80s, like the way she
Mhm.
her voice effect or whatever, but he makes you believe it. But like you said, he's a very relatable hero. I like Chris Evans's Captain America better than Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man for that that what do they call it, the Infinity War, the Infinity Saga, those three.
Yeah.
But I also get too like you can't keep doing it with Chris Evans because he's tired of being a superhero all the time and he
Right.
wants to do
Yeah.
something else. I mean, that's why I think Anthony Mackie, I do really feel like he's a good, he's not like he says in the preview, right in the trailer, I'm no, that's right, I'm not Chris
Steve
Evans, I'm not
Rogers.
Steve
Steve
Rogers,
Rogers. Yeah.
but I think he's a good person to kind of move on. I'm really excited to see what this movie is going to be like, which is interesting because it's going to be competing directly, I think, with the new Superman movie. But I think if they were going to replace Chris Evans, this is Mackey's one that I would want to see do it.
And it's the logical character arc too, because that's how it goes in the comics too. Like Falcon was his sidekick,
Yeah.
and Captain America retires. So here, you're your new Captain America. And then that's. I'm hoping that film does well. I don't know. I feel like the culture of our society right now is an interesting one. I feel like would they accept a man of color as Captain America on screen? That's my issue. Um, like I hope so. I hope they do. Um, yeah, the truckers
Okay.
agree with me. But I feel like if it competes against Superman, Superman's gonna definitely beat it. Because
Well,
I
we
feel
don't
like
know.
that. I feel like that's a more like wholesome. That's I'm gonna say a white character that people know, that people already embraced a long time ago. I feel like Falcon as Captain America is kind of a new thing. I think the only really selling thing is like the Red Hulk, to be honest,
Oh
because
yeah.
he's really the focus of this trailer. Um, like I said, I hope both films do well. I don't know. Uh,
Well, the thing I will say about Mackie is that I feel like he's just been like when he's in Captain America Winter Soldier, when they introduce him in that one, like I feel like he did such a great job there as a supporting character, and
mhm.
and so I do think at least from the very least it feels like Marvel, with the MCU, they've developed his character enough that like fans, who watched these movies, they should at least be familiar enough with who he is and know what he can do. I haven't seen Falcon Winter Soldier yet. I've got to see that series. Um, but at least seeing him, opposite. I mean, he was great in Civil War as well. I really liked him
Yeah,
there. So
yeah.
I feel like he's been developed enough. So like I feel like at least Marvel's done enough to like get people ready for him. But yeah, I mean, you make a great point. It's like, yeah, I mean, I, especially if they haven't seen him in the previous movies, they might think, well, no, I don't want to do that. Which and the other thing, of course, too, is the movie's got to be good, and I think that's the
Hmm.
key is like they've done a good job to this point with the other Captain America movies. So it's like, are they going to keep doing that same good job with these Captain America movies, only now with Anthony Mackie? You just I hope so for sure.
Well, from what I heard about this movie, they when they first shot it, I heard Kevin Feige watched it and decided we cannot release this movie.
Oh,
They had to
right.
like pretty much reshoot the whole thing to get this version out, and I guess this is the version they enjoyed. Um, so I'm hoping it's good. I'm hoping I feel like Mackie has enough credibility with Marvel fans that the people will come and see it, even if it's out of curiosity. I hear it's as grounded as Winter Soldier, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I hope it's his own thing, and it's not like that's he's in the shadow of Steve Rogers. If he's in the shadow of Steve Rogers, pretty much the whole film is like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So let him be his own character. Let him create his own story. Hopefully, this leads to something good. Um, I feel like they have the right characters. I think Red Hulk is a good character to put in there. I know the leader is back from the Incredible Hulk, which is a villain that has not been used a whole lot, so that's a good thing. And yeah, let's see what happens. I hope that we go in that more grounded route. Like I was hoping for Blade to be like that, but I keep hearing like Blade was gonna be like this supernatural thing, and what are we doing, guys? Like like come on, like
Yeah.
we can't keep making Infinity War at this point, And then you mentioned Love and Thunder, Thor. I feel like that character ran his course at this
Yeah.
point. I think that was one too many. And I feel like that film suffered because you had a very serious villain, and then you had all this comedy around him,
Yeah.
and that didn't work.
Yeah. Well, because one of the things I think about Ragnarok, I mean, for me with I mean, when I watch Ragnarok, I think it's sold as this idea that it's like a throwback to like 70s sci-fi when it felt like kind of from a story standpoint, it was kind of a more of a modern kind of thing. But the thing I loved about Ragnarok is one, Kate Blanchett, I thought was like a fun
Mm-hmm.
but diabolical baddie. And then
Yeah.
I loved the team up at the end where you've got, Valkyrie, you've got Hulk, and you've got Thor. It was kind of like a fun group, and then you've got Loki with with the people that he's broken out of the prison. So it was like a kind of a fun. That seemed that's kind of the same with like Guardians of the Galaxy. What makes those ones work so well is that there's these kind of fun team ups at the end. You kind of want to see everybody come together and defeat the baddie. Yeah, and so yeah, like you said, like having the God Butcher, is a little bit different from. I mean, yes, Kate Blanchett was killing a lot of people too. She wasn't like a nice baddie. Our hero Ray Stevenson that we're going to be talking about here, his character gets killed off, I believe, right in
Yeah.
Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, but I think Ragnarok also worked because the two Thor films before that were very serious
yeah,
movies. So the third one was like a breath of fresh air. It's like, oh, this is a comedy. This is a buddy cop comedy in a way, and it worked. And I feel like you can do that over and over again. So it just gets diluted at that point.
no, it's
Um,
it's a hard thing, these trilogies and whatever, I mean, like the Fast and the Furious is probably the only one, right, that's been able to sort of carry this thing on for so many movies. But the interesting thing, I guess, I would say about Fast and the Furious is almost like they start over with number 4, even though they don't officially
Mm-hmm.
start over with number 4.
Yeah.
That's when they start like the blockbuster thing, and then number 5 is like kind of the first real blockbuster of the series.
Right.
So
Right.
even there, it's kind of like you're doing like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But I think it's still, like they still kind of, I mean, 9. It's interesting is because they knew with 9 they kind of went over the top, with the whole flying in space
Space.
and all that. Yeah, and so they said, okay, we're going to bring it back down to Earth and have this big, huge bomb that's like rolling through Rome. But yeah, and that seems to be like the one that's been able to manage like all of these sequels. There is a point where it's like, all of them. Superman had trouble after 2. Batman, I think part 3 was a little bit, and then of course, Batman and Robin. We always talk about that with George Clooney, which I always like George Clooney, and I always like that movie, but I also get to why it's not a good movie, in that series. I think it's the other thing that Marvel and Sony probably need to think about with this Spider-Man movie is that now you're hitting the 4. Number 4 is a tough one. Iron Man didn't do a number 4. Guardians of the Galaxy isn't doing a number 4. Captain America didn't do a 4. Because I think technically this is part 4, but it's starting in a new
Different. Yeah.
direction.
Right. Yeah. I feel like I think 3 is a good number at this point.
Exactly. Yeah,
I think they see like maybe like they feel like horror movies they can keep going, so maybe they feel like they can keep it going.
Right.
Like even then at that point sometimes it doesn't work. Like Saw like the last Saw, I don't think you saw it. Saw 10 or Saw X. That was an amazing movie. That was the 10th movie I thought that was the best one since the first one, to be honest. And I was like, this is number 10. So it could work. I mean, it took a while to get there, but it could work. So I mean, it's all business. It's money. The branding. Let's just milk it dry. Look at James Bond. What will come up to like 25? Is it 25, 26? Yeah, I mean, they're still making money. I mean, that's how it is. It's business.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that's what Marvel has. Maybe that's how they have to look at it, as it's not so much as like, keep doing Thor movies, but it's like, okay, we've got 3, 4 Thor movies, 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, 3 Iron Man movies that are all collected together in this, huge universe of movies. And that's maybe how they have to think of it. Those are all our 25 James Bonds. Maybe that's the way that they have to think of it. That like the characters themselves, it can be hard to carry them for multiple ones. I mean, it's gonna be interesting with Daredevil because this is gonna be 4 seasons of his TV show that he's gonna be, and even that with like TV nowadays, right? That if you get past like 4 or 5 seasons of a TV series, it's people start to think about when are we gonna wrap it up. And so that's going to be interesting too. Like with Daredevil, are they going to keep doing TV series with him, or are they going to start putting him in movies?
I think they're gonna have to put him in movies at this point. Okay, it's connected to the MCU. You might as well put him in a movie.
Yeah.
And I think people would see a Daredevil movie with him.
Oh
in it. We put Punisher and Electro, and you have Kingpin in there, and Echo, and we're gonna put in like bringing Jigsaw in there and Bullseye. All these characters. I mean, yeah, I think people will see that.
Oh yeah.
And then like MCU right now, I think they're trying to wrap all this Avengers stuff up because now they're focused on Fantastic Four. X-Men is coming up. I mean, that's gonna be a lot of money for them. They have the animated X-Men '97, which did very well for them. So I feel like that's the focus now. I think it's like a comic book company. You have different lines: Spider-Man line, X-Men line, Avengers line. Punisher. The Marvel Knights line. I mean, that's what it is. So that's how they're making their films.
Well, and maybe that's a good point for us to maybe a good place for us to segue, because Marvel Knights was an idea that they had in the late 2000s for movies, where it was it ended up just being this movie we're going to be talking about, Punisher Warzone, and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, which I really like that movie, but I know it's about a lot of lists of like worst comic book movies of all time.
I will say this: I like it more than the first one.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's like just kind of out there and crazy.
It's just fun.
Yeah. And I don't know with the Deadpool movie. I think I'd heard that they did try to get Cage for an appearance, and he couldn't do it, or he didn't want to do it. I didn't hear about the Punisher piece of it. I know Thomas Jane said he wasn't asked. Obviously, Ray Stevenson, they wouldn't have been able to ask him. I mean, Dolph, it would have been interesting if they got Dolph and they brought Dolph in. They just kind of mentioned the Punisher, that they had weapons for the Punisher.
Yeah. I don't know if Thomas Jane would have fit in that movie at all.
No.
I think Blade was the right choice. I wouldn't say Nicolas Cage, but I feel like he's also kind of like on a comeback, where it's like he's trying to get like very like serious award contention now again.
Yeah.
The Long Legs he did with a Dream Scenario. These movies that are very like critically acclaimed. So I feel like he's also kind of like I don't want to kind of do a comic book movie because like he with the Flash he was in the Flash with the Superman thing, and he said that they didn't even ask him to do that. Like he was like they just took an AI and just like he faked his skin or whatever, his face or whatever.
Wow. Yeah.
So I think from that he was probably like turned off. Like I don't want to be in this movie.
Yeah, well, because I think he said in a recent interview that he's out of debt. So he was
Yeah,
doing those direct-to-video movies for years to get himself out of debt. Now he's out of debt, and so now he can pick what he wants to do for movies, and so
right.
yeah, he's gonna be
Yeah,
more discerning. Like I've heard. So I think if he was to revisit the Ghost Rider, it would have to probably be on his terms, and if he thought there was more that he could explore with that character. Otherwise, yeah, we'd have to probably find somebody else for it.
I could see him doing one if they bring in a new Ghost Rider. Maybe they
Yeah.
do another movie. I know Ryan Gosling wants to do Ghost Rider.
Oh wow.
That's like his dream project. He's like, I want to do it. They asked me, I would do it in a heartbeat. That's what he said. So,
Well, then
I
why? Yeah, what
mean,
are they waiting for on that? That if
I
Ryan
don't know.
Gosling says he wants to do the Ghost Rider, like get him in the because that's one of the things. Like we have, I guess there is technical. So we thought Robbie Reyes, that that Ghost Rider was in the MCU, but then they say that the
Yeah, humans don't. Oh
Age-
no, it's a shield. It's a shield. Yeah,
right, they
doesn't
don't
count.
count anymore, and he was in Agents of Shield, so they don't. Yeah, which um,
Yeah,
so I guess he could be but the other thing too is right. You can have multiple Ghost Riders, so you could have Ryan Gosling, and he could play the Johnny Blaze one. I mean, he was so great in Drive that I think he would be a really great Ghost Rider.
I think he's just his favorite comic book character, so he wants to do it.
Mm,
He's like in a Channing Tatum position right now.
yeah,
But Channing Tatum, he's got his dream. So, and I
you're
think
right.
that, and I feel like he's gonna get his own movie because
Yeah,
that was like the most popular character in that movie.
yeah.
So it worked out.
Yeah, I think what Marvel was originally going to do before the Marvels tanked was they were going to do this big, long, elaborate multiverse thing to bring the X-Men in.
Yeah.
And then when that tanked, and Ryan Reynolds was like, I want to make a third Deadpool, and it's got to be Deadpool. They were just like, do it, and do it the way you're going to do it, and that. So they ended up kind of scrapping that whole thing and just go, no, this is how the multiverse is going to work. It's just going to be people bouncing around and people jumping from multiverse or whatever, and maybe that Deadpool is able to jump to different ones and he can like break the fourth wall, which it's another thing. She-Hulk used to break the fourth wall too, so it's I think I know that show wasn't as well received. I think she's another person that they could use in that capacity, like Deadpool, to like bounce between different realities and that kind of thing and break the fourth wall.
Well, I heard she's coming back for say the Doomsday. Is it the
Oh
first
right,
Doctor
yeah.
Doom? Yeah, she's one of the Avengers in the movie.
Okay,
So
perfect. Yeah, yeah.
I
So
think
that's
her.
right.
I think it's her and Daredevil are both in it. So I guess they're creating like a new batch of Avengers or something.
Yeah.
I guess more grounded Avengers. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that could be. I mean, because that's the thing, right? Is that the reality is that comic books, right? They're drawn by people, so it's like Spider-Man could be 25 for 30 or 40 years, but in real life, right? These actors get older and they don't want to play these parts. They don't always play like the joke that Ryan Reynolds makes to
Oh,
right, yeah, you'll be doing Wolverine until you're in your
to 90.
90s, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So right, but that's the thing, right? Is that at the end of Infinity War or the end of Endgame, we get essentially we're getting people who as actors don't want to keep playing these characters anymore. They've played them enough, and so they have their swan songs in different ways in there. I mean, it was kind of a hokey way that they got rid of Scarlet, the not Scarlet Witch,
Black Widow.
Black Widow. That
Black
was a
Widow,
little
yeah.
bit weird, like the whole like we got to throw off a cliff or whatever thing, or she's gonna jump off a cliff and sacrifice herself. It's like, she could have fallen in battle, but I think overall that was kind of what Endgame, part of what Endgame was that like these characters that we'd watched for however many movies, it was like what 24 movies. Some of them were like, okay, I've done these movies enough. I'm ready to move on to something else, and they had to get killed off, or in Captain America's case, become really old, and
Hmm.
grow old. But that's the reality is that but I think one of the things that makes comic books so cool is that characters can be changed by new authors, new writers, new artists. And I think now we can think of it too that new actors can also do them, just like what we're seeing with the Punisher here, where different actors can do different roles and different parts. And it doesn't always have to be this connected universe. You can have a one-off with whoever playing the Punisher, and it doesn't always have to be John Bernthal, for example, or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really the way to go. That's what they did with Batman. Kept changing the character of Batman. Did it work all the time? No. But you have to. Cause I feel like characters are tired of tired of playing like the same characters like 4 or 5 times in a row. You gotta give them something different. You know what I mean? I'm surprised like people like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans that these movies like they like 8, 9 movies as these characters. I mean that's a lot.
Right. Yeah.
And then you get and they have to wonder like what movies did you give up to do these movies?
Right. Exactly. I mean, you're talking about like if you watch like the first 2 phases of the MCU in a year, you're probably going to have either Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. as your number 1 actor for that year on Letterboxd. Easy. Like unless you watch the X-Men ones too, then it might be Hugh Jackman, right? Because he's done he's in there so many times. I mean, I think the other record is like what like the guy who played Jimmy Olsen, I think he played Jimmy Olsen for 5 movies. I think he had the record right for until Robert Downey Jr. and Hugh Jackman. I was trying to think if anybody else passed, like anybody else had played the same comic book character like so many times in a row like that, or in so many movies like that. But I think like it's like Robert Downey Jr. and Hugh Jackman, I think have like the record back and forth. I think that's what it is. I'm trying to think if there's somebody else in there, but
I was trying to think if Helmsworth was in there also. Because he might be up there.
Yeah, and then I guess for non-comic book, right? Because like Vin Diesel, he's played Dominic Toretto in like everything but part 2, right? Everything but the second
part 2,
one.
Yeah.
Right. Because did he appear at the beginning of part 2? I can't.
No.
Like, did they play footage from the end of part 1 when they do the race? I don't think they do. I don't think there's a flashback.
They don't use them at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say okay, but then it's like part 3, right? I guess like the audiences
right
were,
the end.
were
so
they were like, they bring him in at the end there. So so he's played that character, quite a bit. I mean, that's got to be up there. And then Samuel L. Jackson, right? He's played Nick Fury.
He's probably number 1, honestly.
Yeah. I can't. How many movies he's been in too? So
plus he did because of the TV show, The Secret Invasion. He did that, which was not good.
Right.
That was probably the worst. That was probably the worst MCU thing they ever done.
Yeah. Yeah, because the hard part with those things is between the multiverse, where it seems like you can just reverse things that happen. You can just make bad things go away or bring people back to life or any of those kinds of things. And then with the Secret Invasion thing, it's like anybody can be anybody. And so again, it means that like you could kill somebody, but actually no, you just killed a Skrull. You didn't kill another person. And so those kinds of story techniques, like they can get a little bit out of control. And I think that might be part of the reason why, when Jonathan Majors, when they fired him for the domestic violence conviction, I think it was almost like they realized too, this is a good time for us to rein things in, because I think they were like the Kang thing, it might have just gotten out of control with the multiverse thing and all that stuff, that he could be all of these different people and all of that stuff.
Yeah, it is unfortunate because I think the character of Kang is a very interesting character.
Yeah,
and I think Jonathan Majors was a good choice for that role too. It may be more of a blessing than a curse at this point that they put Doctor Doom in there. I think Doctor Doom is a more established villain. People know who that character is really. It makes sense because he's part of Secret Wars. He's part of Fantastic Four. I mean. Yeah, I feel like I think the Kang thing probably would have made things worse. I think once you saw him in Ant-Man, and then we knew it was over. Like it was like, okay, this is not working. Ant-Man beat him. Like I mean, like it's like what?
Right.
It's over, bro. It's time to join the tower. You're done.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
You got beat by Paul Rudd, dude. It's over.
Right. Exactly. Right. That was Mackey's claim to shame, unfortunately, too. Right. It's that he had to kind of recover that in Civil War. Right. Act like he didn't get right. That's a good point. Yeah. You get because Ant-Man's another one, right, where they've tried with that one. And I think Ant-Man probably has always had a ceiling of like maybe $400 million, right? But it's never going to be like a big earner. And I think it's the other problem, I think, with Marvel is that I think Guardians of the Galaxy gave them false hope on what you can do with characters that aren't big characters. That you
Yeah.
could, because or that you could make big things out of characters. I mean, looking at it now, it's like, okay, well now with how well Deadpool and Wolverine are doing, I mean, I think the top three Marvel for me, their biggest characters are like maybe Spider-Man, Wolverine, Deadpool, and now it's like the two biggest earners that are not Avengers movies are going to be a Spider-Man movie and then Deadpool and Wolverine. So it's like kind of prove it. And so it's like, but I think on the same by the same token, it doesn't mean they shouldn't keep trying. It's just I think they should try and just not expect like that okay Captain Marvel made $1 billion or Black Panther made $1 billion. I mean part of the reason why Black Panther made $1 billion is because it was just such an amazing movie. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can't always make an amazing movie like you can't that can't be the expectation is it always that's got to be a lot of work to always do. I feel like with Black Panther they're like we've got to make this one that good. We can't afford to make this movie bad, and that's how the movie comes out. Is this is like everybody there's like an attention to detail where just everything works in that movie. Um, yeah, you can't expect to do that every time, and you can't again you get stars too that help like so yeah, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see like you said what kind of comes next.
Yeah, I feel like they 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 lost a lot with Chadwick Boseman when he passed. I think that
Yeah.
was a big loss for them. Even though I did enjoy Wakanda Forever. I thought that was a good movie. Um, I feel like certain characters in certain movies are part of like pop culture. I mean, Black Panther came out during a good time where it came out in February, Black History Month. That was like the perfect month to put it out. No, the people of color came out to support it. Really the first black centric superhero movie outside of Blade, really. It's and that's why that film succeeded. It was just so part of pop culture. The soundtrack, the acting, the way they dressed, the way they acted. It was just very like its own thing. And I think that was the way to go because when he was introduced like in Civil War, he was a cool character, but we knew nothing about him. Then you do that movie, you know everything about him, which makes him a big character in Infinity War. And then when the moment he comes back in Endgame, it's like, whoa, this is a big moment. Um, I feel like the characters like you talked about, like Ant Man and these lesser known characters, I feel like they need to be supporting characters first. I feel like that's why Black Widow worked because she was part of Iron Man 2. She wasn't the main character; she was a supporting character. And I feel like that's why she became so successful. And I feel like the TV shows, I guess, are meant to do that, but the people when you want to sit down weekly to watch a TV show that's like 6 hours long, where the beginning's probably great, the ending's probably great, but everything in the middle is like, okay, what are we doing?
Well, because you make a fantastic point about Black Panther is that one, Chadwick Boseman. I think we've seen ever since Superman with Christopher Reeve that you've got to get the right person to play the part, and Chadwick Boseman, he was Black Panther, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I think it's going to be one of the problems for them. I think now moving in a different direction with Black Panther. I think having it be is the character that plays his sister. I think
yeah.
that's a good move because if you just put somebody else, and I think you could have maybe also done it with Michael B. Jordan, just because again his character was established as being
Mm-hmm.
Killmonger, and say okay now he's gonna be Black Panther. I think we could have accepted that too, but I think if you just put a whole new actor in. Right, it would have been like, okay, this is a whole new Superman or a whole new somebody. So yeah, so there's that part there, but also I agree with you. I think the way he's introduced in Civil War, the way they do that, where he's representing his country, his father dies and he's trying to find out who the father's killer is and all of that. He's really cool in that movie. And again, that
Yeah,
movie just overall worked really well. That it's like everybody wanted a Black Panther movie. So then it was like, okay, there was that anticipation of like, oh, this guy's got to get his own movie. And I think that's
right.
always a good way too to do it, where it's like you want that person to have their own movie. And I think to your point about Ant-Man, it was like, I think they screwed up with Ant-Man too, because weren't there delays making the first one where because that's why it ends up being after the Avengers movie as opposed to before it.
Yeah,
Be,
Edgar Wright was supposed to direct the original one,
yeah,
and then they had like creative differences or something. I guess they wanted to change the tone of the movie, and he was like didn't really agree to that,
yeah,
so they decided just to go a different direction. Which I would have been interested to really see Edgar Wright. Man, I think that would have been really cool.
yeah.
But I think at that point they were really more focused on the brand and like creating this universe rather than like having these directors do their own vision of the character. which we were talking about earlier, like the Phase One um, films were like very like director centric filmmaker visions of these characters, right? Like
Yeah.
no, the first Avenger, Captain America, is very much a '40s time period piece, and that works. The first Iron Man, first two Iron Mans are very their own universe. The Incredible Hulk is his own universe. Thor is his own universe. And they just came together in Avengers, and you kind of go, all these. That's what made it so special because all these different vibes and tones came together and it worked
Yeah.
in one movie. And I feel like after that, it was like, okay, everything has to look the same, sound the same, feel the same. It has to be comedic at a certain point, and I think that's what watered down that whole franchise.
Yeah. Well, and I think too is that when you start with it, when in the early page period, right, where it's like, oh, we got to get, they get Robert Downey Jr. and he has like more of a say in how things go, or you get Chris
Mm-hmm.
Evans, he has more of a say in how things
Right.
go, and then it's like once you get into the next tier and you're bringing on actors, they wanted to be in the MCU because it was like, they could see the money for it, they could see how big it was going to be for their careers if the movies came off well and all that. So suddenly it's like you're not getting actors who are coming and saying like, no, the part should be this way, or like you said, directors, like a John Favreau saying, no, we got to shoot this way, or we got to do this way. Now suddenly it's like, no, Kevin Feige's going to tell we're going to tell you how to do it, and the actor's going to be like, okay, yeah, I'll just do it that way. I'm going to, I've never done a comic book movie before anyway. I'm game for whatever you want to do. I'm just happy to be here and cash my big checks and use this to boost my brand, and it's like anytime you go to somebody's IMDb page, it's usually the Marvel movies that come up first on their top four. And so it's like everybody wanted to do them. So to your point, I didn't even think of that. That's another good point about, especially when you get into Marvel to Phase 3 of the MCU. It's like it's more about this sort of like this overarching thing that they want to have everything connect and fit the way it's supposed to, as opposed to the previous one where it was like you got pieces of things connecting, right? Like you said, like, oh, here's Black Widow in this movie, or here's Hawkeye in Thor. So you get
Right.
these little pieces of them, but they were still their own movies and their own visions of the directors and the actors and everybody involved.
Yeah, and I feel like once like the first Spider-Man with Tom Holland Spider-Man came out, it was already kind of part of the whole Avengers thing. Like Tony Stark was like one of the main characters in there. I'm like, is this a Spider-Man movie? Is this an Iron Man movie? Even
Right.
when I first watched it, I enjoyed that movie. It's probably my least favorite of the three though, but I do enjoy that movie. But I feel like like let him just be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of like he's like Iron Spider. It's like, okay, well, why are we doing this so soon? Like this, we have time to do this, and it's like it is what it is. It's the whole brand thing, and I'm sure Sony has some say in that too.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how this whole like MCU stuff has happened because I've been with it since the beginning, and you notice the change. You go, there's like it's very homogenized at this point. Like, okay, I know what's gonna happen. I know the beats, every beat that's gonna happen. Oh, the villain's gonna die at the end.
Right.
Okay, you
Yes.
brought it's like okay, well, like sure,
Right.
you're it's just a popcorn movie at this point. Like I'm not supposed to think much about it.
Right. Well, because I think that's what makes the Deadpool and Wolverine movie so great, at least for me, is that it pokes fun at a lot of those things.
Yeah, yeah,
But I love it around the 2 hour mark when Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool tells the audience, "Hey, we're going to be done soon," because of how all the
yeah,
Marvel movies have gotten so long lately. And he's like, "No, trust me, we're going to be done soon." Stuff like that I thought was really great.
yeah. I think that's why that movie was so successful. I think it poked fun of not just the Marvel stuff, but DC too in a lot of ways. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah, Henry Cavill when he's there, and they're like, yeah,
yeah,
the DC did you dirty, which I mean, it's kind of true. I mean, when you compare the Man of Steel to the first Superman movie, it's like it seems like Zack Snyder kind of gets everything wrong that the first Superman got right. It's like
right, yeah,
Glenn Ford is as the dad is just as Pa Kent is just kind of a unassuming guy who dies of a heart attack because he's trying to run to keep up with his son, and instead in Zack Snyder's it's Kevin Costner like doing the most Kevin Costner thing he can do, right, which is to die of a tornado that his son could easily save him from, that would have made plenty of sense to do it that way, but no, it's like they've got to have this, a lot of that kind of the darker stuff and all that. It's just like, yeah, it just felt like he did everything wrong and then
him
you know
killing Zod at the end.
yes, yeah, it was, and then they didn't do a good baddie, or they kind of kill him off in the Batman versus Superman, and then he comes back to life in the second one, and it's almost like they had to bring him back to life because it was almost like the ghost in the machine, right? Like we can't defeat the
Yeah,
baddie without Superman, so we got to save Superman so he can save us, kind of thing.
yeah. It's unfortunate. Uh, as a big long comic book fan, sometimes you watch the movie and go, "I would have done it this way. I would have done it that way. Why did you do it this way?" Um, I feel like Man of Steel. I feel like that's a good movie for the most part. I mean, it's not very much Superman like movie. Like it's not like he's not a wholesome goody two shoes. Like he's a very much like a very gritty, violent character from the start of the movie. Um, but I still enjoy it. I think, like you said, like before, Ben Affleck should have got his own Batman movie before they did the second one. Um, and then Wonder Woman was great. And then they messed that up too. Like the second
Right.
one, that
Yes.
movie is just awful.
Right.
Um, and like it's just the whole, I don't know what happened there. And then you had like Suicide Squad, which wasn't great. The second one was great. The first one wasn't. And then it's Shazam. I mean, it's The Flash, which could have been better. But then you had a problematic actor to begin with that couldn't really promote the movie. I'm hoping like things change for DC because I'm more of a Marvel guy than a DC guy, but I'm hoping DC does great things with their James Gunn universe that he's creating. I don't know if it's gonna work, but you
Yeah,
know,
I've always been more Marvel than DC too, but I've always kind of felt like, boy, there's like more to mine with those DC characters for movies, and it just feels like, and maybe it's because like DC has barely scratched the surface, I think, of like what they could accomplish with their characters,
yeah,
and it's like you said with the Flash thing, it's like they they go all in on Ezra Miller when they know that young people aren't going to go see that movie with him in it. They've already understood that they think he's bad, and they won't, younger people won't go see movies with people in them that they don't like. There's no
right.
separating the art from the artist or anything like that for them. They're just not going to see it. But at the same time, you've got was it Grant, I can't think of his last name,
Grant Gaston.
Grant Gast, yeah, who plays him in the Arrowverse. So you've already got this nicer version of Flash that younger people have gotten used to and enjoy and like watching. So then it's like that other thing that they've got that juxtaposition of like, oh, here's one Flash in the movie and one on the Arrowverse. They're probably like, well, why aren't we just using the Arrowverse Flash? Why can't you use him? He's fine. Everybody likes him. So it was like kind of a double. Then the third one was that they tried to go Spider-Man multiverse with that movie, thinking like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
we'll play on the nostalgia thing that made everybody go see Spider-Man, into the multiverse thing, and it didn't work, right? Like it was kind of almost like by that point people thought it was kind of hacky. They were like, well, you're just doing what Spider-Man did, which yeah, I think that hurt them there too.
Which is unfortunate because that one was coming out before No Way Home,
Right.
but then the pandemic happened and just switched everything around. So
Yeah.
they got screwed at the end. Plus, it came out right after Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is another
Yes.
multiverse movie, probably the best of the multiverse movies that's come
Right.
out. And it's just like it's like we've already done this like how many times by now? 3, 4, 5.
Right.
Even Arrowverse has done multiverse stuff. So it's like kind of like
Right. Yes, right. That's a good point because Arrowverse. That's right. Because remember they brought like
the
the
crisis,
Barry Allen,
yeah,
the
the
Crisis
crisis
of
of Infinite
Earth, right? They
Earths.
brought Brandon
Yeah.
Ruth in. They had
Mm-hmm.
the guy who played Barry Allen, who was his dad, was
Yeah.
Grant, because yeah, his dad.
Yeah.
They had him playing the Flash from his old '90s show. So yeah, you're right. They kind of went for it already in the Arrowverse and brought everyone.
That was great.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so I mean that's the other piece of it too, right? Is that DC, because one of the things I think that DC has always prided themselves on is having, you know, people doing different takes on their characters in different places so that they could say like, okay, we're going to do this DC universe with James Gunn, while we've got this other Batman series happening with a Penguin series, and then we've got this other Joker series happening that's separate, and saying like, okay, you can do these and the Arrowverse can be separate and these things can all be different, but at the same time you kind of compare them, right? You say like, oh well, this one's doing it, there's a lot of room for comparison there, whereas with Marvel, because it's all one thing, you can't compare, right? Because it's all one storyline. There's not like a TV show that's on the CW about Spider-Man that you can compare to the movies. They're all, it's only on the movies.
I think it's the closest thing you can compare it to is really like the cartoons.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Spider-Man cartoon, you have the X-Men cartoon, you know, which I think those that media probably did those stories better than with the live action stuff. I mean, they had more time to kind of devote their time to kind of create those stories and make them meaningful. But I feel like as we're what in our 40s,
Yeah.
we've seen this like countless times. Christopher Reeve, that's Superman. That's my Superman. Michael
Right.
Keaton's my Batman. I used to see the Adam West Batman show on syndication.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always like different stuff. Like Captain America, I've seen those cheap Captain America movies before I saw Chris Evans.
Right.
Fantastic Four with
Right.
Roger Corman, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen all this stuff already. So it's kind of like you have to kind of like be like, how does this compare to my childhood? Sometimes it's better, a lot of times it's not, and it's like and that's also a thing. Like nostalgia, does nostalgia really work with these kind of
Right.
movies? Because then you can kind of compare it to the comic book characters. Oh, the comic book did this better than the movie. I mean, it's media is very funny like that.
Yeah. Well, because you make a great point too, because like Tim Burton's Batman is so different from the Adam West Batman
Right.
that what Tim Burton did was he not only they made his own Batman that was very successful, but he paved the way for all kinds of different Batmans that you can have. So that, Christian Bale could be his own Batman. And now, we've got Robert Pattinson being his own Batman.
Mhm.
Whereas like Superman, it was almost like Superman created, Christopher Reeve's Superman is like so big that like you could do like, like Dean Cain's TV show Superman, but he cast such a shadow that like, they've got to find a way to break out from it, I think, the way that Tim Burton did with Batman, and so that we can accept multiple Supermans. I think that's a big piece of it. And we'll see. Maybe James Gunn's got to figure that one out.
Yeah, that's the tough one because
Yeah.
I feel like Christopher Reeve was pretty much the perfect actor for that role. I think Henry Cavill did a good job. I just think the movies weren't really catered to him,
Right.
to be honest. But it's like it's like it's funny. Like I feel like like Patrick Stewart as Professor X. I mean, how many times can he play that role? Yeah, you had James McAvoy. He did a good job, but I mean, I think James McAvoy said he wants to do it again. But do the MCU want him to be Professor X? I don't know.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. That's gonna be a tough role to replace. Who do you pick for that? You know what I mean? That's the problem. Like now we're stuck where we establish these actors as these characters for so long. Who's gonna replace them?
Well, I think that younger version idea is a great one. But like you said, you've got to have really strong actors to do even that, right? So it's like we couldn't just accept a young Patrick Stewart, right? It had to be James McAvoy, or it had to
Right.
be, Michael Fassbender for a young
Mm-hmm.
Ian McKellen. And even then, they still kind of like they were within the tradition of those characters, but they also kind of did their own thing a little bit too. I mean,
Right.
you think of
Yeah.
like that Days of Future or X-Men First Class, I think, just thinking
Yeah.
about like Michael Fassbender going around to like Argentina to kill,
Yeah.
former
Yeah.
Nazis. He's just like such a great character like that. He was so good. Yeah, I think that's probably another thing another way to do it is to, have younger versions and have them sort of grow into the character. But yeah, I think, part of it is the actors. You got to get the talent to be able to play these parts and pull it off really well.
And I think the public also is very impatient.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They want this to like if they're not good in the first movie, they don't want nothing to do with them. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm done. I think
Right.
maybe 20 years ago, people would be a little more accepting of let's like Halle Berry as Storm for X-Men. If that happened today, she would be killed.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean,
And that
like,
character wasn't written well,
no, and that's not
yeah.
her fault. Yeah.
Right.
But I'm saying like like I think in the second one she was much better. She was more comfortable in the role.
Yeah.
But I feel like in the first, if I say this happened, it came out in 2024, people be like, "Oh no, she's she's trash, she's terrible, cancel her."
Yeah.
It's a very different society, different generation. So I feel like people were more forgiving 25 years ago. Now, if you mess up, you're done.
Yeah, that's a good point because I think the way we treated movies back then, right? It was that, there's no internet to go on. There's no forget like social media, like the internet wasn't a place that was like an instant gratification kind of place, right? Like you wouldn't go on, I guess there were message boards, but even those were not like instant kind of like, you tweet something and you get responses. It was more like, you go with your friends to like the coffee shop or diner or something after a movie, and
Right.
you drink. Back then you could even smoke right in the diners,
Water
and
cooler talk. Yeah.
right, exact. Water cooler talk is another one too. And you talk about it, and there would be maybe a group think aspect of like, okay, there wouldn't be one person might have trouble like saying that they like something if everybody else didn't like it. But for the most part, you'd get like the tone of like how people felt. Like I remember the first that Star Wars Episode 1, the Phantom Menace. I remember
Mm.
everybody was so excited to see that, and then we go to our diner that it was called Bigford's at that time. We're all just sitting there and we're just kind of like, yeah, what happened? We waited over a decade for this thing, and it's just not. I think somebody had said it like because we were all trying to make it sound like we liked it. That was like kind of the feeling. It was kind of like because we felt like we had to like it. And somebody
Right.
in our group, I think one of my friends' wives or something like that, she said something along the lines of like, this isn't usually how we are after a movie. Like, and they were talking about like Independence Day, where we watched that and we are like, oh, that movie was awesome and had all this great stuff. And it was like, usually that's how we are. And we're not like that right now. And it's like, yeah, we're not like that. Like we don't, but it wouldn't lead to. I guess though the kid who played the young Anakin Skywalker, I guess he said he got a lot of hate from people, and he dropped out of
Yeah.
acting because of it. So I guess the words gets out at some point, but it's not quite the same. Like you said, it's not like an instant like overnight that person's done.
Yeah, and it's funny because like Hayden Christensen also got like criticized for, like the second one, and now everybody loves him. Like he Anakin, like, oh, Hayden Christensen's back. Like it's like, when did that change?
Right,
Because
right.
everybody hated him in the second one. The third one he was good. The
Yeah.
second one is like, oh, he's like very wooden and dry. And the whole line with sand, like he hates sand. That's one of the most infamous lines in any movie.
Right, right.
Um, and the way he recites it is not great either.
Right.
But then now you see him like in his new Star Wars stuff, like the Obi-Wan show that came out. I think he did another one. I forgot which one he did. I think it was Ahsoka. I think he was in.
Oh, yes,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, because he trains her in the
yeah,
Clone Wars cartoons.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then everybody loves him. Oh
Yeah.
my god, he's back. He's here. So like, when did that shit happen? Like it's
Right.
very weird. Like you pick and choose people. Like, oh, he's great now. Oh, but back then you hated him. Now you love
Right.
him. Like
Right.
it's weird.
It is. It is a crazy thing, and I think as we're to maybe to bring it back to Punisher here, like that's for me with Thomas Jane, it wasn't that I hated Thomas Jane. I wasn't a fan of that first Punisher movie, but then I
Yeah.
saw him in Dirty Laundry, the short film about where he plays Punisher in a short movie, and I was like, oh well, this
Uh
was the Punisher I wanted. Why didn't I get this Punisher in the movie?
yeah. I actually watched it the other day. I think it was, I watched it Sunday. And it was like, I never was the biggest fan of that movie. I like it a little more now, but I feel like he was okay in the role. I just think the story around him was not good.
Yeah.
It doesn't never really feels like a Punisher movie.
Right.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just
Well,
supporting characters. I don't know if it's the apartment building he's in.
the
John
fact that it's
Travolta's
not in New York.
not yeah, it's
It,
not in New York. He's in Florida.
yeah.
The John Travolta character is not that interesting. He's trying. It's yeah. I don't know what happened there. Honestly, I remember the soundtrack more than I do that movie, and the soundtrack's not even that great.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
so,
Well, no, because like what happened was, I guess, because this movie we're going to be talking about, Punisher Warzone, it was supposed to be a direct sequel to
yeah.
and I guess Thomas Jane was like, well, I want it to be grittier. This feels like it's too comic booky or something like that. Which on the one hand, it's like this movie is pretty violent. I mean, it definitely is comic booky for sure, but it's also
Hmm.
violent. But I can kind of see now like maybe why he would have felt that way. I think he probably looked at that first movie and was like, man, this isn't exactly this didn't come off the way it should have. This could have been a different thing. And so yeah, I think that's part of it. I mean, the other thing this movie does a little bit better than that movie is it has more of the supporting characters like Microchip and people like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what happened in that first film, but I know the second one he wanted Jigsaw to be the villain,
Yeah.
which happens in this one. That's the perfect villain to have. Yeah,
Yeah.
he said he wanted to be a little bit greater. He wanted Walter Hill to direct the sequel. and the guy who directed the Warriors, that's like the perfect guy to do a Punisher movie.
Yeah.
And I think the Lionsgate was like, no, we don't want him to do it. I think Rob Zombie wanted to do it, and they said no. It's like I would think Rob Zombie would have done a better job than the first Punisher, to be honest.
Yeah.
So and I guess that's why Thomas Jane dropped out of it as a sequel. They decided to just reboot it with a different story that doesn't connect to the first one at all. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened. Because I feel like the Dolph Lundgren one, as much as it's not really the Punisher, really, because he doesn't have the skull or anything like that. It's still a Punisher movie more than the Thomas Jane one is.
Yeah.
So it's weird. Like I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what trying to do like a Daredevil, Elektra kind of thing with it, which that didn't work either. Especially Elektra, that movie is just one of the worst comic movies I've ever seen.
Right.
Um,
Yes. Which is such a shame because she puts everything into that movie, Jennifer Garner. And it's like they had like the pieces to make a good movie, but it's like, like you've got, Natasha Malthe as Typhoid Mary. But then it's like,
yeah,
okay, so Typhoid Mary is this really great baddie in the Daredevil movie. She's kind of back and forth between, baddie and anti-hero, but she's a really great character. Well, what can we do to make her not work in a movie? It's like and I think this is one of the things about comic book movies. I think it's what makes the MCU, and I think even like the Spider-Man movies and the Blade movies and stuff like that. I think for us fans as comic book movies, it's was so refreshing to start seeing these movies be made right because we got too many Electras in the past. It was like we had
yeah,
so many movies that were like Electra, where it's like, why are you doing that to that character? Why aren't you making that? Even and I think it's with X-Men Origins Wolverine, where what they do with Deadpool, where you're just like, oh, why are we back here doing this kind of stuff again? We thought you guys were done with doing this bad kind of stuff. And yeah, at least with MCU, it seems like they're like, I think because Kevin Feige is, he's a comic
yeah,
book fan, around the same age
yeah.
as us, who grew up with these characters in a certain way that he wants to be as true to them as possible, which obviously for us we definitely appreciate.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like a lot of those earlier movies were made by studio heads that had no
Hmm.
idea
Yeah,
who these characters were.
yeah,
Like I said, the Punisher doesn't never feels like a Punisher movie. That 2004 movie. It's like a drama
yeah,
of this man that lost his family and it's like Death Wish. It's what it feels like. It's like Death Wish.
yeah.
And then the Punisher is not Charles Bronson.
Right, right, yes,
It's
right,
just that.
because Death Wish, right? We think about Death Wish, like at least Charles Bronson, right? It's like a fun thing, that he's
Yeah,
doing. Yeah,
and he embraces that character. Like by the end, he seems like he really is that vigilante. He embraces it.
yeah,
And I never got that sense by Thomas Jane in The Punisher. He feels like he's fighting his instincts to do stuff like that.
yeah.
And The Punisher never does that. He wants to get revenge on these
Right.
evil people for what happened to his family. That's the whole point of the character.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's what comes across really well here. One of the,
Yes, yeah.
one thing I read about this was that the director, Lexi, oh, I lost her name here, Lexi, uh,
Alexander.
Alexander, yeah, Lexi Alexander. So when she was making the character, she was originally going to make it a more grounded movie. But then there was that mass shooting massacre at Virginia Tech, and I guess they were showing the inside of the shooter's room. Because I think he posted a video of himself or something before he committed the murders or before he went on the shooting spree. And there was a poster of the Punisher in the background, and she said, "Well, I need to make the action in this movie so over the top that no kid with a machine gun is going to be able to replicate it or going to want to try to replicate it." And I almost kind of think that actually helps the movie because you get some scenes like that chandelier scene at the beginning.
Oh, we gotta talk
That
about that when we get to it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah. Well, why don't we'll jump in here on this then? Yeah. I mean, so again, this movie comes out in was it 2008, I believe. So it's like right at the dawn of the as the MCU, right? Which we don't,
And get this, it came out during December.
right, December.
Christmas. Like what? This is not a Christmas movie at all. What were
Right,
they thinking?
exactly. Yeah. And of course this is the same year that The Dark Knight comes out, which
Right.
that could have gone either way, right? Like it could have been that people were interested in more of this kind of stuff. I mean, I think it's why you get a lot of billion-dollar comic book movies in between the two, Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, is that people were they just wanted comic book movies so bad. And
Yeah.
I think this could have I think it could have benefited from that, but on the other hand, I think it like probably wasn't advertised. I don't think it was advertised well. I think it was kind of, yeah, it just kind of was. I mean, I barely remembered it being in the theater. I remember commercials for it. Like, I was like, oh, this is interesting. When is this going to be out?
Yeah.
I don't even know if it played locally where I lived. It might not have. So it was just kind of, but like you said, yeah, it's it's not the movie, right? It's not the movie that you want to go to, for Christmas. And I was trying to think, oh wait, if that still would have been a time like the mall would have been really crowded, or shopping centers, or if it was like we're at that point where we were far enough along into the whole, like the Black Friday thing, if it was quite as bad. I think it was still
I,
at that time was like the
I,
worst,
I,
wasn't it?
I think, yeah, I think the mall stuff was still like big back then. I don't think like Amazon really took hold yet.
Yeah.
Um, so I remember seeing this in a theater. It wasn't in the mall, but I remember seeing it. It didn't play. It didn't play long in theater. I think it played maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I remember. It was not success at all. Um, yeah, but at that time, that 2008, yeah, I was still going to the mall at that point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say, I think it's
I
same
I,
here.
I think the marketing was just not good, and I think like stuff like Iron Man and Dark Knight would just show like what comic book movies could be.
Yeah.
And I think this one came out. I was like, okay, there's like a direct to video version of what we saw in the summer. So it's yeah, and then in the Christmas thing, I still don't understand
Right.
that
Exactly.
release strategy. Like Lionsgate, I don't know what they're doing then, and I don't know what they're doing now. It's
No.
they were interesting. They were an interesting studio. I gotta say that.
Right. Well, because the John Wicks are them, right? Those are
Yeah,
Lionsgate, and it's
yeah.
like those are the only ones I think they've had a good strategy with. But I think maybe it's because I think they've kind of left it to like Chad Stahelski and Keanu Reeves and company to just sort of make them. But like one thing I thought is good about the John Wicks is that they have gradually moved up in budget. It's like 20 million, 40 million. I think the last one was like 100 or
100.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas like you said with his Joker movie, it's like 50 million to 200 million. I feel like that's too big of a jump when you're going from a sequel. Gradually moving the budget up and making it slightly bigger, I think is a better approach. So that at least with that one they've done well. But yeah, wasn't that recent one was the I can't think of the name of it, that Borderlands or something? Wasn't that them?
Oh yeah, that was Lionsgate. Oh, that
Yeah.
one was. Oh God.
Right, exactly.
It's already on digital, by the way. If you want to watch it, I mean,
Is
that's how quickly they got get out of the theater. It's
right.
not a good movie.
Yeah,
They also did The Crow, the reboot of The Crow. That
that's
was
right.
done.
Yeah, yeah, which
Yeah.
nobody was
So
asking for. Nobody wanted that. Yeah,
and now they hired an AI firm to write their stories and create their characters. So
yeah.
we're at this point now where they lost it all, and they're like just let's go
Right.
with AI and just let them
Right.
do our work for us.
Yeah, we won't
It's
pay a
that bad.
writer. Yeah,
Yeah. They
man.
also had Saw, by the way. I don't know if they still own the franchise. I think MGM now owns the franchise
Oh, that
of
makes
Saw.
sense. Yeah, which is Amazon, I
That's
think.
yeah. So they had a lot of money from Saw and from like John Wick, but now they have nothing really, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, because that Borderland, yeah, it's interesting. Like because they have the large, their DTV, their DTV market. Even that one, I've heard like Richard Pierce, he wrote the movie Sector 4 Extraction that had Olivier Gruner directed, and I think he was saying on Ty and Brett's on the Comeuppance podcast, I think he was saying to them that they didn't even like read the script or anything when they bought it. Like they picked it up just by hearing that Olivier Gruner was making a movie about a mercenary who goes to Afghanistan to rescue his buddies. They're like, okay, fine, that works for us. Like they hadn't looked at it or anything like that. I think is kind of how they did it. So I think that's kind of how it is. They just kind of grab stuff. I wonder, so it's like, yeah. Then now they have an AI firm who's yeah, right, writing the scripts. That's going to be interesting because I think the way that works is you get a human to like proofread it, but
Yeah.
the thing is that if you're proofreading, I mean, unless you're a professional, I mean, even as a professional, I would think like you're going to miss things, because it's just mentally, that's how our brains work, is that we've been reading the English language for so long. If we're, a native English speaker that, has grown up I mean, these people were probably maybe at oldest or youngest, maybe in their 30s. They've been reading the English language so long that your brain will fix things without you even knowing you fixed them. So the AI will mess with things, or like, your brain will say, boy, that sentence doesn't sound right, but why doesn't it sound right? And you can't really figure it out because it's not the same as if you wrote it and you wrote it naturally. and I think that's going to be the challenge with those AI ones is that having a human proofread it, they're going to miss things. And then when we watch the movies, we're going to hear people say things and we're going to go, that doesn't sound right. Who, like, did AI generate that sentence or something like that? Because because that's one of the things, when you're a native speaker, you're like, if someone was to ask us like, well, why do you say, he do or he does, but Jim do, or I'm sorry, that I do, right? Like I can't tell you why it's I do and he does. Like, I have no idea why that is, but I know when I hear it that it's not right. Like I know, okay, he do isn't the correct, that this is the same thing but with AI, it's even more complicated because these complicated sentences. So it's gonna be interesting for us watching low budget movies if that's what Lionsgate does. Like we're gonna hear things that are gonna sound it's gonna sound really weird.
Yeah, and the week we're recording this, Lionsgate is releasing the Francis Ford Coppola movie that's coming out. Megalopolis,
Oh,
what is it called?
Megalopolis, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that comes out the weekend we're recording this. So that's $120 million budget.
Right.
That movie's
Yes.
not making $120 million.
No, no. I think it's only showing it like indie theaters. I don't, is it showing at the
No,
big
no,
theaters?
it's a wide release this weekend.
Oh, it is. Okay, okay. So it is gonna
Yeah,
be okay.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's over 2 hours, $120 million budget. They barely marketed this movie. The marketing is not great to begin with. Um,
Well, and then
yeah,
there's like there's a story that Coppola, because he was like trying to get the
yeah,
extras ready for like a nightclub scene, so he's like kissing everybody, and
yeah. That doesn't
yeah,
help either.
no,
It's this Lionsgate is screwed at this point. Like it's
right.
really sad.
Right. Well, because it's amazing. Because like you said, like this movie that we're going to be talking about here. I mean, I don't know what the market is for this movie. I don't know. I think it's I do know a lot of people that like the kind of movies that we like. They like this movie. They
Hmm.
enjoy this. And a lot of people will say this is their favorite Punisher movie. It's one of their favorite comic book movies. So I guess that's the market for it. But then it's like, how big is that market, right? Beyond like maybe like a limited release and then streaming or
Right.
something like that. I mean, you think of a movie like Prey, that the Punish or the Predator sequel,
Hmm.
that went direct to, it had a much bigger budget than this, but went right to Hulu. That's probably a place for a movie like this. Like like if Marvel was going to make more of these kinds of movies, I think that would be a great place for them. Is you could do more Marvel Knights imprint kind of movies and put them right on Hulu. And but I don't know what makes success for that kind of thing. I don't know, like it needs a certain amount of streams or subscriptions. I don't know how that works exactly.
But it's probably a mix of both.
Yeah.
Because there is a Nielsen for streaming now, so they
Oh,
do
so they could
watch.
say,
They can look at the views and go, okay, like Netflix that kills everything pretty much.
right. Yeah.
Um, that's why they cancel all these Star Wars shows because the Star Wars shows don't have Nielsen numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Fortunately,
no, that makes sense. Yeah. So I mean, because I think a movie like Punisher Warzone is, I mean, right now it's currently playing on Pluto, here
yeah.
in the, so, but I think, I think for Disney Plus, I mean, I don't know if they would want to put this on Disney Plus, but Hulu, I
The
think,
Hulu, yeah, Hulu will
yeah,
fit right in,
it's
yeah.
perfect for Hulu. And I think, this is the kind of movie. I mean, it was $35 million in 2008. So I guess that would be like maybe like a $70 million picture now, with inflation,
Hmm.
or maybe,
Yeah,
60,
60,
yeah.
yeah.
Um,
It's
but
still low. It's still pretty low for a comic book movie,
yeah, yeah,
but
exactly. And I mean, when you look at the names that are in the film, nobody that's really going to command a huge salary. I mean, Dominic West at that time, he would have been a big enough deal with The Wire. But really, even Dominic West, I don't know how much he would be commanding.
maybe Julie
Um,
Benz because she came
yeah,
from Dexter.
that's right. Yeah.
She was in a lot of Lionsgate movies around this time because she did this. She did Rambo, the fourth one,
Oh, right. Yes.
and then she also was in Saw Five. So it was like
That's
all
right.
Lionsgate. So I guess she had a three-picture deal with Lionsgate because she did
Right.
all three of them.
That makes sense. Yeah, because she did a Lifetime movie around this time too about a woman who was like held hostage, or her daughter was held hostage, so she had to rob. It was like based on a true story.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, like, she was like in demand at this time, and then
Yeah.
it's almost like, yeah, you don't see her in much anymore. Yeah, I mean, Colin Salmon, another one who he did like Alien versus Predator, I think. He plays the part you expect him to play in a movie like this. Same with Dash Mihawk, which Martin Soap was in the comic books. I know as the guy who was pretending to investigate him but really wasn't. Yeah, maybe I'll get in on the movie because yeah, I'm starting to talk about things that happened in the movie a little bit. So the movie starts with an old mob boss getting out of jail. We see the news reports of this old mob boss getting out of jail, and accompanying him is Dominic West as Billy Russo, this mob
Billy
guy.
Butte. Yeah.
Billy the Butte. Yeah, exactly. Billy the Butte. And at the same time, they go and have this big party in out, wherever the mob boss's mansion is. And there's a sense that the Punisher might be wanting to take care of this. And we get Dash Mihok as Martin Soap along with another police officer with him. I think it's played by Tony Calabretta, who plays that staff leader. They're sitting in the car, staking out the mob boss's mansion, thinking, okay, the Punisher is probably going to show up here. And sure enough, he does show up. He just, we get a little bit of tension between Dominic West and the old mob boss. We can tell that there's some tension there, and so there's a sense maybe that Dominic West might want to take over the family or whatever. But really what happened.
It reminded me of like the Batman movies, though. These mob bosses will come together.
Yes.
None of them agree on anything. It's like right. Every single time, it's like, oh, these fucking criminal bosses cannot agree on one thing.
Right.
All they want is the money. Where's the money? I want the money.
Right.
What's the percentage?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you see that in a lot. Yeah, like because Batman in particular, right? It's like the different crime bosses. Then there's usually
the Dark Knight itself did that.
Right. And then we find out the Joker. Yeah. Yeah, because that's what it is, right? It's like they because I think Gotham kind of did that with Penguin in with that version of the Penguin. That's when we get introduced to our big baddie, right? Is that they kind of do that, which kind of happens here, I guess, but not quite.
Batman '89 with Joker and with Jack Nicholson and Jack Palance.
That's right. Right.
That rivalry. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And Jack Nicholson takes over. Yeah. And he dominates. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what we think might be happening here. The only thing is we got the great equalizer, who's the Punisher, and he comes in. Oh, I mean, the lights go out, and so when the lights go out, it's time. And then he takes a flare and just smashes it into the table. This is a big fancy table that they're all eating at. He smashes it into the table, and he just starts shooting. Actually, he doesn't start shooting people right away.
I would say this is the best scene in the whole movie.
Yeah, he's just stabbing them, slashing them.
He slices the old man's throat. I think though his wife had a gun or something. He kicks it away. He pretty much, I think, stabs it. No, he breaks her neck.
Right. Yes.
And then he starts shooting people. He stabs someone through the skull.
Yes.
He's on a chandelier. It's like an airplane spin. And he's shooting people like in a circle. It's freaking awesome. Like this whole. Oh, there's a chair like to the eye. That was like.
Yes.
Wow, that one made me like. Scream out loud, like, oh my god!
Yes, yes.
He killed like 25 people like in 3 minutes. It was just so amazing.
Yeah,
this is the Punisher. Like finally, we got it right.
Yes. That's the best part is it tells you in this first 10 minutes or so that this is the movie you came for.
Right.
Which is beautiful. It is. Super it is violent. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So Dominic West gets away. Billy Russo, Billy Butte, he escapes and. Ray Stevenson is going after, or Frank Castle, he's going after him, and he encounters one of the police officers, not Dash Mihok, but the other police officer. And we think, oh boy, we're expecting, right, that pain in the ass cop, right, who's going to get in the hero's way. But then we get a twist, right, when the cop says, yeah, I think he's going to the docks because we think there's something going on over this, the recycling plant by the docks that they own. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And then he punches himself in the face to pretend that he got punched by the Punisher. And then he goes down and tells Dash Mihok, I got punched by the Punisher. And Dash Mihok, we find out he's trying to learn about who the Punisher is. And he's like, oh, you met him. Can you tell me about, whatever? And yeah.
He's the comic relief, but he's not funny at all.
Right, exactly.
Like his character does not work in this movie at all. I don't understand why he's here.
No. Well, because he was a character in the comics, and I think they thought they could include him here. But right. I think because that's one of the things about this, they try to include so many people from the comics, whereas other movies, other Marvel movies, they don't include anybody, right? Or they bring them in later. But yeah, you're right. Like it's just kind of like they kind of bring him in, and he's like you said, he's kind of comic book relief without being funny. Yeah. But yeah, so then we get to the recycling plant, and there's a whole deal going on between Russo and his guys, and then TJ Storm is there. He's got like these parkour guys that they cause trouble as parkour guys, which great when we bring them up later on because that is a great sequence with them. But they run off with some drugs, and then Castle shows up again. The Punisher shows up again. Everybody kind of splits, and Billy the Beaut, he gets knocked into a huge machine that smashes glass. And
Yeah.
he's in this glass smashing thing. At the same time, one of Castle's guy, oh sorry, one of Russo's guys comes out of a doorway, and Castle just plugs him right between the eyes and takes him down. After he looks him over, he realizes he's got a wire on him. Realizes he's working with the feds, and he's just killed. He's essentially killed a good guy. Um,
Hmm.
but he leaves, and then when the feds come in to clean everything up, they discover that Billy the Beauty is still alive, despite the fate. His skin has been all ripped off and everything. It's all kind of rough there. That's kind of like a real like kind of that scene was similar to like you talking about with the Joker. Things that
Yeah.
we would get in the old Batman, that kind of thing.
I felt like this whole like portion of the movie was pretty much Batman '89. Like it was like the Joker goes into the vat of acid. He's in this glass crusher.
Yeah,
Then we have like a scene where Punisher's in his own like bat cave,
yeah,
and then you have like the plastic surgeon scene later on, which
yeah.
is kind of like the Batman '89 again. I was like, obviously someone watched Tim Burton before they wrote this script. It's just the same freaking movie.
Yeah, I think they borrowed that from it. I mean, this movie feels, I don't know what you thought, but this feels like one of those 90s comic book movies post Batman.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's a Montreal that's supposed to double as New York, but it's
Yep. Noticed it right
also
away.
yes, right. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know which one. Like obviously the trains, right? The trains you catch, But then what was it?
The sign was really different, and then like the cross signals, the crosswalks.
Right.
You don't have those
Yes.
crosswalks in New York anymore.
Right. Right. With the walks, with
Yeah,
the
it's not the hand, the green
right.
hand and the red hand. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then also too, I think there was a subway stop that doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 13th and Fifth Avenue or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's not a stop.
Yeah, yeah. So you can see that it's, but in a way, I almost think it works because it creates this it's interesting because
Atmosphere.
yeah, because one of the things about Marvel that I love is that they use real New York in their movies and in their
Yeah.
comic books. And that's one thing about the first Spider-Man, the first Tom Holland Spider-Man that was cool was that like they used Queens. It was like okay,
Mm-hmm.
he's in Queens. The bodega gets attacked by by Adrian Toombs's weapons and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in this case, I liked it because it created more of like a absurd comic book kind of vibe to it. That was like, okay, this is an absurd version of New York. This is not, or not absurd, but a comic book version of New York as opposed to, the real thing. But normally I wouldn't like it. Normally I like that Marvel uses New York as a character in their stories. But here I think it kind of gave it an interesting vibe.
You could tell the way it's filmed also it's not American. Like you could tell
Yeah,
like a different country, like the filtering and the contrast coloring. It's very you could tell it's like a Canadian. It's like very TV movie almost in a way.
yeah,
But like you said, I kind of like that. It separates itself from other comic book movies. It's kind of like his own little thing, his own little pocket universe, which is I think is good. Um, but yeah, I remember seeing the crosswalk. I was like, this is not New York.
right, right,
It just threw me
exactly.
off for a minute. Like, wait a minute, where are we?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can't remember the last time cities in America in general had like the red don't walk and then the white
yeah,
walk. Yeah,
yeah.
it's been a long time since they've had those kinds of
And then the
crosswalks.
trains look like shuttles, and it's like that's
Right.
not here. That's
Right.
that's like so futuristic. It's not even here.
Well, 'cause
Um,
that's like John Wick 2, where they're also in
yeah,
the Montreal subway, and it's like, okay,
yeah,
this is not, I think they try to duplicate subway stations, like they say. I think they at one point they get off at the World Trade Center stop, but it's like, no, this is you're not, this isn't like any place in New York. This is this is the Montreal, I think, again that they used.
it was totally like Rumble in the Bronx, like
Yeah,
vibes. Like, oh, yep, I could tell this is not New York. This is
right,
like probably
exactly.
Canada or Australia, one of the two.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now we got like three things, I guess, going on at this point. We've got okay, the funeral for the guy who was shot.
Right.
Um, and the Punisher shows up at his funeral. That's where he discovers that Julie Benz is the wife of the guy he shot. That he also has a daughter. And that's where we meet Colin Salmon, who he's the buddy of the guy who was died. He's an FBI agent, and he's swearing revenge. He's like, I'm going to get this castle. I don't know who's, I'm going to take him down. And so then, Frank walks away, and then we get the surgeon, right, with with like you said, the kind of reminiscent of 1989 Batman. And I mean, that Jigsaw looks rough. This is not the Jigsaw from the John Bernthal series, where it's just some stitches on his face.
Right.
This is definitely like a horror movie baddie kind of Jigsaw.
It's like Dark Knight Two-Face.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. He's melting. His face is melting.
Yeah.
And I love the look. I think the look is great. I think that's probably one of the best things about this movie. You could tell this guy is like so fucked in the face. Like,
right.
And his name is Beauty. Is Billy the Beaut. So his looks are gone.
Right. Yeah.
He's totally lost his mind now. Like, he's totally like, fuck this. No, he gets no fucks anymore. I'm gonna kill this Punisher guy. I don't care how I do it. It's gonna happen.
Right. Exactly. Because I think it's closer to what I think the Jigsaw in the comic book would be.
Yeah.
Only that Jigsaw was more of an organized crime guy. He was like, I think, right. He was kind of more into like running organizations and stuff.
Yeah. He was like a lesser kingpin.
Yeah.
In the comics. Yeah. I will also talk about the Colin Salmon guy. When he goes into he meets the other detective in the mail room. I was like the basement.
Right. Yes. Yes.
All the files that are Punisher murders.
Right.
The whole room is like full of these things. I'm like, what the hell has this guy been doing for 4 years? Like, good Lord.
Right, exactly. Because what happens is that Salmon goes to the police station. He's like, I want help in bringing Castle down. And they go, well, go down. We've got our task force in the basement. Go down to the basement.
Yeah.
Of course, all the police officers are laughing at him. And he goes down to the basement. And it's just Dash Mihok as Martin Soap. And yeah, he's got all all these like file cabinets around him and all of these baskets of files and stuff. And so Mihawk's like, I'm gonna get some pizza, best pie in town. And he says to Martin, he's like, why don't you get started taking a look around to start digging in on some of this stuff. He's like, well, you said you said to look up his murders. Which one am I supposed to look at? Which cabinet am I supposed to look at? And he's like, all of them. They're all, and then they kind of pan back, right? We see all of these cabinets that are filled with stuff.
Oh my God. That's like, holy crap.
Yeah. I mean, that's like reminiscent of the Dolph Punisher, right? Where it's like, high body counts. This is letting us know, of course, that we've got a high body count coming. But the thing is, right, is that Castle on the other side, he's starting to have a crisis of conscience because he killed a good guy. And that's when we meet Wayne Knight as Micro, who I think he's a good Micro. I know, Eben Shadrach Moss was Micro in the Bernthal series, which I thought he was good there too. But this for this movie, Wayne Knight was a great Micro. He was he played the part well.
He looks like the character too in the comics as well. Right. So it kind of works.
Yeah. I think they tried to get Eben Shadrach Moss to look like, but he's just like a thinner, with a big hairdo. That's kind of like what. It's gonna be interesting, right? Because I guess this Fantastic Four isn't part of the MCU, so maybe there's no overlap. I mean, he could play two characters. I don't see what other people I think have played two characters in the MCU before. So
I think it is part of the MCU, isn't it?
Oh, is it the new Fantastic Four? Yeah. So I guess he's gonna be two. Yeah. So he could be Micro in the Punisher movies and the Thing and the Fantastic Four. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. Do that.
Yeah.
Multiverse. That's the answer.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah. So he could be different people at once. Yeah. But Wayne Knight's Micro, he's like you said, he looks more like the comic book character. They don't call him fully Microchip, but he's like, he's selling him weapons. That's kind of a bigger thing. He's he makes a joke about going to a gun show and getting weapons for him that way. But then he's starting to see the crisis of conscience, and he's like, hey, don't we need you out there, Frank. We need you, taking these baddies down. And he's like, wow,
he's thinking about retirement at this point. Yeah.
And then when Dominic West, or when Bill, when Jigsaw, he's got his couple of guys with him. He's talking with them about, we gotta take Castle down, right? We gotta kill Castle. That's our main goal here. We found out he's got a brother who is referred to as Looney Bin Jim, who is in an insane asylum because he's such a sadistic killer. And they go in and break him out. He starts eating the orderly's liver that was feeding him, or I guess stealing his applesauce. So to get him back for stealing his applesauce, he eats his liver. So again, this is like old Batman kind of stuff, right? Arkham Asylum.
Hmm.
It again has that kind of feel to it.
Yeah, even before that, I like the way Billy came up with the jigsaw that he was looking out the window and he sees the crossword, like the jigsaw puzzle in the Times Square. Like it's supposed to be
Oh
Times
yes,
Square. It's the billboard that's moving, and you see like the puzzle being connected. And I was like, oh, you don't call me Billy, I'm Jigsaw now.
yeah,
It's just so simple, but it works.
yeah.
So he's like that's how he feels like he's connected by all these like this loose skin. So
Yeah.
he's not like totally complete. I like that origin a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that was another good part there too, because he's seeing himself in reflections and things like
yeah,
that, and yeah,
yeah.
um, and one of the things that his brother Looney Bin Jim, when they take up residence in a hotel that was owned by the mob family, he starts smashing all the mirrors so that
He wants to see his reflection. Yeah,
yeah, and so we get that kind of, again, it's this kind of the maniacal baddie kind of thing that yeah, kind of ramps up things. And then Castle, I guess he goes back to see Micro at his place,
yeah,
and he's telling him he's retiring, he's quitting. And Micro gives him this whole thing about, hey, listen, the oh wait, no, it's before that, right? It's before that because he goes to the house first. He goes to Julie Benz's house
The
to drop
money.
off all
Yeah,
his money. Yeah.
yeah,
So he's stolen so much money from the mob that he's just got it in a huge duffel bag. He's just like, rich. And he's bringing it, and the daughter is there doing like craft work or something like that. And the daughter recognizes that the Punisher, Frank Castle, is a good guy. But the wife, of course, has him at gunpoint. She comes out with a
yeah.
gun and is like tells the daughter to go inside. And Frank Castle's like, hey, I'm sure your husband, if he's a good agent, he taught you how to shoot, took you down to the range a few times. That's it. Point it right here. He kind of points it at his heart and says, pull the trigger. And she, of course, doesn't. That would have been the end of the movie, right? I guess if you right then. But she doesn't. She goes back inside. She won't take the money. So he brings the money back with him. But he's done. He's decided at this point, I'm not going to be Punisher anymore. And he goes to see Micro. And Micro says, it kind of a fun scene where Micro's like, "What are you talking? You gotta at least take out these guys because they're gonna come for the Julie Benz, her and her daughter. You know that they're gonna come for her at least. So you should at least go to protect her." And he's like, "No, I'm not doing it. I'm out." And then he leaves, and Micro does like a countdown. He's like 3, 2, 1, and then suddenly, boom, Punisher's back, and he's like, so he's like, "Okay, well, how do I find these guys?" And so there's a young guy who's working with Micro who says, well, he knows TJ Storm, and he knows that TJ Storm and his parkour guys have been working with Jigsaw. So he's like, yeah, I'll show you where to find them. So, this was like kind of a big thing, right, in the late 2000s, the whole parkour thing, right? That people, jumping off of roofs, jumping all over the place, and it was like this whole
Yeah.
thing. And so we see them doing that. We think it's just kind of one of those things, right? Where it's just your regular run of the mill guys doing parkour thing, until one of them gets blown up by a rocket.
That scene is so awesome. Like he does a flip from one roof to the other, and before he jumps onto the other roof, explosion. Like
Right.
he just blows up into pieces, and I'm like, holy crap! And the effect is so well done too.
Yeah, yeah. And then we find out that like they're the so then we get TJ Storm, who's like the only one left because he kills the other guy as well.
Yeah, she's
Um,
in the head. Yeah.
Yeah, and then TJ Storm, he shoots him in the legs, and
Hmm.
he's essentially like, I want to know, where do I find, Russo, where do I find, Jigsaw, and he tells him, he kind of essentially lets him know, like, oh, they're going to be going to the girls, the wife's house to pick up because they were looking for money. They think that this FBI agent stole money from them, and he's hiding it at his old house, at his house where the wife and daughter still live. So that's where they're going. So that's what TJ Storm tells them. That's where we're going.
Even
And then
before even before this, we have Jigsaw meeting with the Russian mob.
oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That's
They
right.
trying to make they trying to make a deal, I guess, for weapons or something. They want a biological weapon. I guess the
That's
Arabs
right.
wanted it, and he wants it for himself. He wants like $12 million for it or something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the guys is kind of like making fun of him, and Jim just grabs like breaks the glass he was drinking from, and uses the sharp stem and just stabs him right in the throat.
Right in the throat. Right. Right. And the
And the guy's
Russian
like,
guy.
"Okay, I'll give you 10 million. We said 12." He's like, kind of like, "Fuck." He just walks
Right.
out like, "Damn."
Well, and I love too the guy who's like the head of the Russian guys. He's like, my father always taught me that you should always respect your guests at a party. So it's kind of like, he deserved to get his throat slit for disrespecting his
Yeah,
guest.
yeah,
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 yeah. So that's like you're right. That's the big thing we know is that there's bioweapons coming into the docks, and
yeah.
Jigsaw still controls the docks, and so he's going to for 12 million, he's going to let this stuff get through, so that the Russians can take it. That's right. And so he's getting this money, but at the same time, there's money and drugs that are lost at Julie Benz. So that's their next trip is to go there. And then we've got Colin Salmon and Dash Mihok. They're tracking the Punisher. They're driving down an alley, and suddenly TJ Storm just lands on a spike grate in front of them. So, what was that? Was that Death Wish 2, where the daughter falls on the spikes, I think, or 3? One of them, right, where the daughter, like, she's just
I
because she gets
think
raped,
it's
I think.
I think it's two.
Too right. She just
Yeah.
boom, yeah. And man, Chris Kavinsky at Bulletproof would get mad at me for not remembering because that's one of his favorite scenes. He's the pick, yeah. So it's kind of like that, right? Only it's the way that they set it up. It's like you see them driving in their unmarked patrol car. They're coming up the alley, and all of a sudden, boom! TJ Storm just lands right next to them there. Yeah. And then Castle shows up and he starts fighting with Colin Salmon, and he's
Yeah.
beating him up, right? He's taking him, but Salmon's just not quitting. He knows he's got to get this guy off him because he doesn't have a lot of time to get to the house to protect the wife and daughter. And eventually Salmon handcuffs him to his arm.
Hmm.
That's how he defeats. So now he's arrested. He's in the back of the car. At the same time, we've got Jigsaw and his crew menacing Julie Benz and her daughter. They're smashing things. They're going. She tells him the code to the safe, but she doesn't know where the money is. Like he's not going to tell her where the money is. And so they're smashing the place up to try to find the money. They get to the house. Salmon and Punisher and Mihawk. They get to the house, and Salmon's like, "I'm going inside." Of course, they catch him right away when he goes inside, which, I never understood that technique. It's like you're supposed to be this. Oh, before that, they killed 2 cops. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They, yeah,
Because he calls the cops to go to the house to see what's going on, and
right.
he doesn't hear from them for after a few minutes. He goes, "Okay, something's going on."
Yeah, that's right. So they've already killed 2 cops, and now they've got Salmon at gunpoint, and Stevenson, where Frank Castle, Punisher, he's in the backseat of the squad car, handcuffed, and he says to Mihawk, he's like, "Come on, undo the handcuffs." And we realize that this has happened before. That the whole Punisher task force thing is just essentially them pretending that the NYPD is pretending that they care about arresting the Punisher when really they've been letting him be
Do
the
their
Punisher
work.
because it's helping
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. He's doing the work
Yeah.
for them. Yeah.
Yeah. So he gets out, and of course he shows up and he starts kicking ass. I mean, this is where we get that sequence. He comes in through the back door, and so the 2 guys that are hanging out with Jigsaw that aren't his brother, one of them is played by Mark Camacho. His name's Pitsy, and then his son is played by Karam Maliki Sanchez. Um,
Mm.
and so his son, when they're menacing the family, they hear something out back, and Pitsy tells his son, go investigate that. He's like, really? I gotta go? And he goes and he meets up with Frank Castle. Frank Castle essentially almost punches his fist through his face.
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
And then the other guy gets his face shot off. Period.
right,
His head
right,
explodes like fucking scanners.
right. Yeah. It's massive, nasty stuff. Now, I mean, eventually the uh, Jigsaw and his brother are able to escape, right? No, they don't. They get arrested, right?
No, you get arrested. Yeah.
Like everybody, right? So they get arrested, they get brought in. Colin Salmon's giving Mihawk a hard time. He's like, how did this guy get out of handcuffs or whatever, and of course he goes back, he takes Benz and her daughter to his underground place so they can be safe, and hide out there. But what they don't know that's happening is Jigsaw and his brother are making a deal with the FBI agents. Yeah. And
yeah, they want immunity and the money.
right. Yeah. And so
for information. Yeah.
Yeah, information on the Russians, and so yeah, so Punisher, he leaves to go investigate. I can't remember what he was going to do. I can't remember because he leaves them there.
Well, before that, we see Jigsaw also being patriotic. He's like, I shit red, white, and blue. And he's doing all these like patriotic shit, like these speeches. They arrest the Russian guy. And pretty much the Russian guy tells him, no, my father's gonna get revenge on you for this.
Yeah.
And Jigsaw doesn't give a fuck.
Right.
And then I think what happens is they leave because I think they kidnap Micro, I think it is. Was that what happens?
Yes, that's right. Because Micro's partner had gone. That's what it was. Micro's partner had gone to
yeah, Carlos, that was his partner. Yeah.
Yeah, he was helping Punisher by watching Julie Benz and her daughter.
Yeah.
So he's there helping, and then while he does that, Punisher was going to see Micro, I think, about getting some guns from him.
Yeah, and he finds out his mother's dead.
That's right. Yeah.
Taken,
yeah, and the mother's death, because so Micro has a mother who's like infirm, who he feeds her. She's kind of catatonic, and we see from behind half of her head is missing. When he shows up, and he knows now what's trouble, because he knows, okay, they must have microchip, and they might even be going back to his subterranean dwelling that he has. And sure enough, he gets there, and Carlos has a big axe in his chest, and Punisher puts him out of his misery.
I love that line. He tells Carlos tells him, "I'll see you in hell," and then Punisher tells him, "If I see you in hell, I'm gonna kick you right back out."
Right. Yes.
You died a hero, so why would you be in hell?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I like that line. I think the whole scenes with him with the family, I think brings out his humanity a lot of the ways. I think that's a great moment in the movie. Yeah. You can tell he's not just a cold-blooded killer. He actually cares about people. And even like we even talk about the origin. Like he has flashbacks of when his wife and kids were murdered. Like every origin in these movies, like they're so different. Cause like this origin, they're in a picnic, and I think the 2004 one they get run over,
right
here, and it's like get it straight, guys. It's like Batman gets it straight every time. Like what's going on?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because it's like a different version of his family dying, right, in each movie. So like even in the Netflix show, it's like his family, I think, it's not that they see is it straight bullets that get them, or do they do witness the murder, and then somebody kills them? I think, I can't remember.
I think they witness it first and then they get killed.
Yeah, and then in obviously in the Thomas Jane one, it's like the entire family is getting wiped out. It's like
he's the only one left.
Parents, everybody. This one here, like, right, because when he goes to the funeral, because that's right, I forget, he doesn't go to the funeral for the guy he killed. He's going to see his wife and kids' graves, and it just happens to be the same time as the funeral that he's there for it. And then, like you said, there's that really great scene too, where the daughter is going through this chest that he has that has all his kid stuff in it, and she grabs the snow globe, and she's like, "Well, would your daughter mind if I play with it?" And he just goes, "No."
He takes his time and thinks about, no.
It was, you're right. He gives a lot in this role that, like, there's a lot of humanity. I mean, Bernthal's Punisher has humanity too. He's just, it's a very Netflix series Punisher compared to this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the acting in this movie is actually pretty good, and I think his acting is particularly like I think he's still like the best like movie Punisher actor. But even when he doesn't say a whole lot, he doesn't say a whole lot in this movie. You can tell what he's feeling, what he's thinking, Just his body language, his facial expressions. You know, even when he's like waiting for a target, you could tell like he's thinking about something. Like oh, something's always in the back of his mind. I like that about this Punisher.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's really like again like that Warzone cover.
Yeah.
John Romita Jr. This is that Punisher. He's big. He's his like you said kind of blocky looking.
Yeah.
The outfits are even kind of blocky, like
Yeah.
the collar on his shirt and everything. Yeah, and he just plays it so well to the hilt. I mean, his character in the Thor movies is also fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a very different character, but it's also really fun, Ray Stevenson.
Yeah. Like in this film, you can tell like he's been Punisher for a long time.
Yeah,
Like he's done this. He's done this before. He has like he's like this is like nothing new to him. Like he's like, I'm just gonna do what I came here to do.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's one of those great kind of movies that I think, they're starting to do more of these where you don't do a full-on origin story. You just kind of jump in and have the hero be the
Yeah.
hero, and then you kind of go back. I mean, I think Daredevil did that too, right? Like he
Hmm.
was, the original Ben Affleck one, but even the TV series as well, right? They it
Yeah.
was, then I think that with the TV series they would do flashbacks throughout it, where
I,
as a
I did.
kid,
I think they did one episode where it was like just a flashback,
yeah,
just to explain it and then kind of move forward. And that's what you need to do.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because this we get we everybody knows who the Punisher is. He's been
Yeah.
around enough that we know who he is, and so yeah, this was a good and again Ray Stevenson, like you said, he plays the part so well. I mean, he doesn't have a line I think for the first 25 minutes of the movie, and
No. Yeah.
yeah, so he's doing this great job here. So once he discovers right that Micro's been kidnapped and so has Julie Benz and the daughter, he needs to get allies. So he goes to the church and he talks to the priest, which I think is also a fun kind of scene. It's like it kind of gets him to his Italian roots,
Yeah.
where
Hmm.
he's talking to the Catholic priest and yeah. And then Colin Salmon shows up and he tells Colin Salmon, like, listen, I could probably use another person. And it's up to you if you want to do this with me. Or no, he wants him to kind of set things up for him. He doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily want him to go in for him, but I think he gives Colin Salmon the impression that he wants him to come in with him, when really he just wants him to set some things up for him. Like, I'm gonna exchange myself for them.
Right.
They get the Russians involved on their side because Dominic West is out there doing these. I think Alexei Alexander said she wanted to make fun of old army recruitment videos. So he's like,
Right. He's doing like the General Patton thing.
right, exactly. Yeah. So you got the
Yeah.
flag in the background, and he's going to all the different criminal groups, and he's recruiting them to join him to beat the Punisher. And it's kind of the funny. I mean, he goes to the Yakuza. He goes to I don't know if it's Bloods or Crips, but he goes to them as well. I think the Irish gangs. Yeah, he gets everybody but the Russians, of course, right? Because the Russians are not
Yeah.
going to work with
Yeah.
with him. Yeah, but they recruit the Russians, and so we've got this big showdown at the hotel coming, and the Russians show up. So it's like the dad of the guy that Jigsaw sold out. He's
Yeah.
at the door and he's like, "I'm here for the Punisher party," and they let him in, and he just his group, the Russians with shotguns, they start shooting at the Yakuza guys, and they're blowing each other away. And then I think it's either Yakuza or Triads. I'm not sure. You know, they don't really say either. They don't.
I think they'll probably triads more than the
Yeah,
Yakuza.
yeah,
The Yakuza probably would have killed those guys, to be
right,
honest.
exactly, right. Because Yakuza, you would have seen like swords and yeah, probably
Yeah.
tattoo. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, but yeah, then the Punisher, he knocks out Colin Salmon because he doesn't want him going in with him, and he goes in himself. And this is where we get. I mean, it's like what you would want this denouement kind of scene to be. I mean, the kills we get as he's kind of making his way from floor to floor are just absolutely fantastic.
This movie walks so John Wick can run. That's what I
Yeah.
thought when I watching this. Like it's like the raid, Dread. When he's in the building, you kind of climbing up the building, just killing people.
Yes.
It's just like it's just one final act of just violence and murder.
Yes. Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
what you want in a Punisher movie.
I mean, you could make the point that that this and John Wick could exist in the same universe. That
It
like the
probably could,
way
yeah,
this is
yeah,
shot, yeah. I mean, they both use Montreal for New York.
yeah.
So did the first John Wick use Montreal for New York or
Oh
I thought it
no.
used more like New Jersey and New York than the other ones did, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember
Yeah,
either.
but I mean that would be the
I know the third one uses New York a lot because they filmed it in the
that's right.
city. A lot
That's
of it.
right. Yeah, that makes sense. That's right. That's a good point. And then the fourth one was in France. It was in
Yeah,
Paris.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because this is I think from an action movie standpoint for people that love really good action, yeah, like you said, this is the kind of movie that kind of sets the stage where people making something like John Wick, which John Wick is like 6 years after this. It probably would have made Lionsgate say, well, we're not going to give you a lot of money to make John Wick. We blew 35 million on Punisher. 20 million. That's the best we can do for you. But again, we talk about having the right star. So it's like, okay, Chad Stahelski, worked with Keanu Reeves before and says, hey, I'm making this movie, and Keanu Reeves is like, okay, I'm going to do like 6 months of training to be in this part, and I'm going to really throw myself into it. And it's like you said, it's like kind of like the next movie. You could almost like this could almost be like a prequel in a way, or like
yeah,
maybe like an appetizer to the four John Wick movies.
yeah. It's funny because it almost felt like the same structure too in a lot of ways. Like the gang, the bosses, like the different levels, different hierarchies of gangs and criminals in the city, and they're all kind of targeting the same person. I mean, because this guy's just killing them all off one by one.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I get the one difference, I guess, right, is that, well, no, because like the thing I think about the Punisher, I guess the one difference between him and Keanu Reeves is that Ray Stevens is just so huge and imposing.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, like when he has that final showdown with Looney Bin Jim, Looney Bin
Hmm.
Jim is an accomplished martial artist who's like, taking his knees out, like kicking him in the face and all this stuff. And eventually it's just like,
He's too
Ray
strong.
Stevenson just like, yeah, he just throws him into like, tiles and through walls and stuff like that, starts smashing him around, and there's
Like
really nothing he could
wrestling.
do about it.
It's like wrestling.
Yeah,
You get the smaller guy who can fight, but you get this big muscle meathead who's just gonna throw you around like a rag doll.
right. Yeah, yeah, and of course too, he can take a punch. He can take a kick or a punch, and
Right.
so
You're
I mean that's
stabbing him and shooting him, and he's still walking around going after you.
right, right, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's one difference between Ray Stevenson Punisher and Bernthal's too, because and also I would say Jane, Dolph is tall and imposing, I think,
Hmm. Yeah.
like Ray Stevenson, but Bernthal's Punisher is more about like the kind of similar to the John Wick like war of attrition kind of thing, where I mean that fight that he has with the priest in the second season, where the two of them are just
Yeah.
beating the crap out of each other with like chains and smack, and the car parts and stuff like that. I mean, it's just like, and it's just this thing where it's just like that. Bernthal's Punisher, he just has this like endurance where he's gonna outlast anybody.
Yeah.
Which is like a completely different thing from this Ray Stevenson Punisher, who's like, no, I'm just gonna throw everybody through a wall.
Destroy the bathroom while we're at it.
Right, exactly. So he takes out Looney Bin Jim, and then he I can't remember what the final blow was to Looney Bin Jim, because he smashes him in the bathroom. I remember in one of the toilets.
Yeah, and then Jim runs away because he realized he can't fight him. So then Punisher follows him, and then he sees that Jigsaw has Micro and the
Oh, right.
wife. And he's like, you got to
That,
make a choice, either him or her. And then he shoots Jim, kills him, and then Jigsaw kills Micro.
yeah, that's right. That's
And
right.
then
And then
and
they
then they fight. Then they fight.
yeah, yeah. And it's one of those things where there's not much of a fight there, because
Right.
we've established that Punisher can take everybody, but in a way we've gotten so much bad stuff with Jigsaw at this point that you don't necessarily even need much of a fight. That like he just he eventually just throws him on this like I don't know what it was, like this fire pit thing that was in the
He
middle of the room
he
they were in.
he impales him with like a metal rod or something,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
then throws it like onto the fire. He sticks him onto it, and he
Yeah.
just burns. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the end of it. And then that's sort of the end of the movie. Like we kind of go downstairs, and I think yeah, there isn't really anything after that. It's just credits, right? I don't think there's any.
No, the wife forgives him
That's right.
for
Yeah.
what happened, and then him and Martin Soap kind of like joke around. He tells they like don't like you should retire, he killed everybody in the city. Then he gets mugged, and then he's
Right.
like, "Help!
That's right.
Oh, I need backup! I need backup!" But
That's right. Yeah,
and,
because we get that.
and I love this the last scene where you see the Punisher on the top of the stairs looking at
Yeah.
like pointing the gun at the mugger. The it fades to black, but you see the word saves.
Yes.
Because like
Yeah.
in front of the church. It's like Jesus saves, but he just the Punisher saves and he kills the guy. Mugger.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Because that was like very reminiscent of the first Death Wish, where
Yeah.
he encounters a mugger at the end of the movie and kill yeah, and that like you said, that scene at the end there with the cross and everything, and it fades to black and we hear the shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great ending to that. Where it's almost like his work's never done. Right, he can never retire. He's
Right.
always gonna. There's always gonna be muggers and things like that he's got to kill.
And then Rob Zombie plays us out.
Yes, yeah, which was great music at the end. I mean yeah, I mean the soundtrack for this movie is great too. That like the music in this is fantastic. So yeah, I mean yeah. Now that we've hit the end of it of the film itself here, I mean yeah. Any final thoughts or anything else that we didn't touch on here?
No, I had not seen this movie since like 2008, 2009, and I enjoyed it. I still think it holds up. I
Yeah,
think it's so well made. I think it's underrated as how. Um, yeah, I wish like they had done more movies like this. Unfortunately, this movie was a bomb. Unfortunately, but I guess we would have gotten that great TV show out of it years later. And he's coming back for the TV show Daredevil, so I'm happy about that. Bernthal. So yeah, I think people should check this out. I think it's not an MCU movie. It's definitely a movie of its time. The soundtrack alone tells you this is a 2008 movie.
right.
Um, it's very new metal. You get Slipknot, you get Rob Zombie. Um, but I think the acting is really good here. I think if you really love violent movies, this is definitely up there. There's a lot of like gore. I'm surprised. I was shocked at the gore, like how much gore this movie had.
Yeah,
Like I remember it being R-rated, but I didn't remember it being like this R-rated.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
whoa,
It's a hard R rate because I mean again you get it right away when that
yeah,
opening sequence when he's
yeah,
in the in the banquet or whatever, the big
hmm
dinner for the mob boss who gets out of jail. I mean,
yeah,
when you get that sequence there, I mean, he just, yeah, it goes and like you said, like when he slits the old guy's throat and then the wife goes to pull a gun and he breaks her neck and he starts like throwing knives to start with. Like he doesn't even
yeah,
get guns out until he absolutely has to. Yeah, and it's just like you said, it tells you right away this is the movie you came for. And I think Punisher fans, this is that movie. Again, I think the Bernthal one it works great within the context of Daredevil. I love how he comes into the second season of Daredevil. I love his own movies that his own series, seasons that he
hmm
has as well. All of that stuff really worked. I really enjoyed that. But it's a different Punisher, and
yeah,
this one definitely has a place. It's like you said, it's not MCU. I mean, again, part of the reason maybe why we didn't see more of these was that between the fact that this one and though the Ghost Rider one, the Spirit of Vengeance one, that one did like 3 or 4 times its budget. That one had a huge return on investment compared to this one. But I think at the same time the MCU was starting to take off, and
yeah,
they saw what they had there with that, and I think the Netflix piece of it was another area where it was like, okay, Daredevil, Punisher, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage,
Luke
and I guess
Cage,
Iron,
yeah,
yeah, we can maybe spin them off on Netflix, and instead of make movies with them.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
but
I gotta say this movie didn't cost 35 million to make. We used every bit of that budget.
yeah,
Like sometimes I watch movies like a 200 million. I'm like, where did 200 million go?
yeah,
Like I guess they went to mostly like the paycheck, the actors' paychecks. I'm
right,
guessing,
yeah,
but like this movie is like 35 million and it looks like a million. Like it looks amazing for
yeah.
35 million.
Well, because other than the violence, other than how violent it is, you could slot this thing in with any number of movies that came out in that sort of that 90s,
Yeah.
2000 period after Batman. It could,
hmm
it fits with the way it looks tonally. I mean, you could fit in with like The Mask with, uh, I wasn't gonna think of The Spirit or something, like those
Oh,
kinds of movies.
Spawn.
Yeah, Spawn, exactly. Spawn's another one. Yeah. So, think about like, yeah, we're talking about with Black Panther, Michael J. White was even before Blade, as the African
Mhm.
American comic book
Yeah.
star. Yeah, and that was another one that was like, and that's another one too that they people didn't really know what to do with it at that time too. I think it's another piece of these kind of these really. I'm hoping maybe that's something that Deadpool and Wolverine will also change, is that you can make R-rated comic book movies and you don't have to skip. You can go as gory and as bloody if you as you want, and there is a market for those.
Yeah. I feel like a Spawn R-rated movie would do really well if the casting's right. I think it'll do really well. I know they're trying to get Jamie Foxx to do it. I don't know if that's gonna work, um, but yeah, you're right. Like I think that there should be more R-rated movies that cater to a certain audience. I think there's an audience there that wants like something a little more, that wants comic book movies that push it forward a little bit more than just comedy or like kid friendly or colorful characters. People want dark characters. They still want characters like that. That's why Batman still does so well.
Yeah.
It's very grounded. It's very almost close to reality. Yes, people want to escape from that, but like at the same time, like people see themselves in these characters. No, we live our lives. We're so like anxious and depressed and angry at things that who doesn't think that one day I want to be like Frank Castle and just take my anger and my frustration out on people. People
Yeah.
people see themselves in these characters, whether that's right or wrong. It's just the way that's human nature. So people like Batman, like like you said, Spawn, Punisher, these characters, Daredevil, these characters, people see themselves in these characters, and I feel like I rather be those characters than someone like Superman. I'm never gonna have alien powers. I'm never gonna be perfect. I'm never gonna be invulnerable. Like he's hard to relate to in a lot of ways. We could relate to a Bruce Wayne or Frank Castle. I think that's why those things are so successful.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think too, like, I think kind of like, especially when we were collecting kind of late 80s, early 90s with comics, like Punisher, for example. I mean, Punisher and Wolverine, those were two big characters in Marvel.
Yeah.
And then, Spider-Man at that time, Todd McFarlane had really taken
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man in a more darker
Yeah.
tone. And then of course Batman, I mean that's a given with that it was almost like people were done with Superman, even whether canon's Superman 4 had been a flop or not. People were kind of they were done with it, and they didn't want Superman anymore. They wanted Batman. They wanted something darker. They wanted anti-heroes. And I mean that's what Deadpool, he's invented, he created at that time, and he was a villain, really. Lobo is another one who's
Yeah.
that's DC, but he's a villain. That Lobo they created because they were making fun of anti-heroes, and people really liked him. And they're like, I guess we should just keep using him. But there was a movement at that time, I think, where people were like, you know what, I want something darker. I want something more adult. I want something that I can relate to. I mean, I remember I think it was the Hearts of Darkness series where it was like Punisher, Wolverine, I think Daredevil and Ghost Rider. I think that was the
I
group.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a graphic novel, I think, or like a
Uh-huh.
mini series at that time. I mean, that was really successful. I mean, I remember I was excited for that pairing to come out. I was ready to buy that up, but those were characters that people, like you said, people kind of relate to them in a sense of like they're not perfect, and
Right.
they have difficult decisions to make, and they don't have these kind of superpowers that fix everything. Yes, I guess Ghost Rider kind of has, he's got some godlike powers, but he also, like, he can't fix everything. Whereas like Superman, it's like,
Right.
the Superman movies, he's like flying around the earth and reversing time so Margot Kidder doesn't die in a car accident. It's like, you know, yeah, like Punisher's not doing that.
Yeah, like I said, like even Ghost Rider, I think he still conflicts himself with the fact that his power comes from evil.
Right.
I mean, he's trying to do good things, but his power is from a very bad place. Same with Spawn.
Yeah.
His power is from based from hell. Um, so yeah, I think like the late '80s, '90s changed a lot of that mentality. I think like you still remember like you see like the Adam West Batman in the '80s, and also you see this Tim Burton rendition of Batman. It's like holy crap, like this is what Batman could be. Like holy crap, like it's so violent and dark, and these characters have layers to them. You understand where they're coming from. even the Joker, as crazy as it is, you gotta get where he's coming from. And then Batman Returns is even darker.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you get X-Men, like Wolverine, you get Cable, who's another anti-hero.
Yes.
Spider-Man, Venom's another anti-hero. He started out as a villain, became a hero later on. And then you get Carnage, who's a villain. And it's like these characters that come out. It's like, yeah, these are characters that people can relate to. They're flawed, and we understand, like, yeah, they may be bad people, but we get why they're bad people. But sometimes they're just psychotic, but we understand that too. Like, oh, this is where they're coming from. They're not like these caricatures of people. I get like a guy like Carnage. I could see probably meet a guy like that in real life and not even know it.
Yeah.
We just want to kill people.
Right.
It's a total psycho. Who knows? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too. I mean, of course, I mean, Superman created, what superheroes are supposed to be, with the
Right.
capes and the outfits and all of that. And it's interesting because Tim Burton's Batman is not that Superman, right? He's got the cape still, but the outfit is this big, like, kind of rubberish leather kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's, and it's
Yeah.
completely black, right? I mean, the Adam West Batman, which I love. I always, that was the fun, Sunday morning, like the reruns. It was always fun to watch. But that's, that Batman is very much Superman, right? It's the
Hmm.
tights, the cape, all of that stuff, that, the symbol in the front. And Tim Burton's like, no, we're doing something different here. And I think because he did all those things different, it opened up the door for so many kind of different things. And I think, like, for example, this Punisher that we see here, he's got the skull in the beginning, but even then, he's not wearing like a superhero costume. He's wearing military garb. Where it's like in the comic books, he
Right.
had a superhero costume. It was like a kind of a shiny black suit with white boots and
Yeah. Yeah.
the skull. But this is something different, right? This is something where he's the Punisher. He wears the skull. Really, he's wearing the skull to scare the baddies. That's
Hmm.
what, he wants that skull to show up when he puts the flare down at that table there, and all they can see really is the skull. But he's not wearing a superhero costume. He's not, Ghost Rider's another one, didn't wear a superhero costume. I mean, even Daredevil, the way that they depict him in the new move in the TV shows, and even the the Ben Affleck, is that, I mean, really, for the most part, right? No movies are doing superhero costumes like, like the old Superman or the old Batman anymore. Now it's all kind of like leather and stuff like that.
I think now they're kind of like compromising on both looks. I feel
Yeah.
like it's definitely more colorful than it was before.
Yeah.
Like, just like to look at the X-Men. Like, the X-Men started at black leather in the movies, and now they're kind of more colorful now. A little more comic accurate. But yeah, I think, times have changed. I think people are more accepting of the comic book look, but I feel like the characters have to kind of still be like gritty and human. I mean, they can't be like you said, Superman, who's like a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Like he's a superhero for kids,
Yeah.
who's like very innocent. But when you become a teenager, I want to be like Batman.
Yeah.
I want to be Superman.
Well,
So
what's hard too, I think, for DC, when we talk about it that way, is like Batman, I think, is their number one character. I think Superman's
yeah.
probably number two.
Hmm.
And like Batman has so many different ways that he can be done because he has this freedom. Whereas like Superman, it's so hard because it is, it like, if you do him too dark, right? It's like, well, that's not Superman, But
Right.
then if you do
Yeah.
him closer to what we expect Superman to be, it's like, well, that's just too goofy, right? Like it doesn't, fit with
Yeah.
the current age. I think even like Wonder Woman, for example, I mean, Wonder Woman, when you see the movie about, Professor Marsden and the Wonder Woman, where we find out that like there's kind of these bondage S&M elements to her character, and the old TV series played on that kind of stuff a lot.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That allows her to kind of not be Superman, right? Like she can be kind of all kinds of, she has more room, I think, too, to be something different. So it kind of puts DC in a different spot, whereas like Marvel, they can say like, okay, we can do a darker, we could do Deadpool and Wolverine, and it's going to work. Like I think for DC, it's going to be interesting to see what James Gunn does. But I mean, I don't think you can do like the Batman or like the Christian Bale Batmans within like some kind of like greater like DC universe thing. I don't know if that's too dark for that kind of thing. I don't know how that would work.
It also depends on how he's gonna present the characters. I'm sure he's not gonna be as dark as the Snyderverse stuff was. So I feel like the Snyderverse was a little grittier than what James Gunn's gonna do. I feel like this Superman's gonna be a little more traditional. I know the Batman they're doing is the one with I think it's the with his son Damian Wayne,
Oh yeah,
who's Robin now. Even like we talk about Robin, even Robin changed
yeah.
during the '90s and 2000s. He became a little more grittier. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to. I guess they're gonna make Batman more like a dad. I guess that's where they're going. Like I'm interested because it's never been done before, really.
Right,
So I'm kind of okay with that. But I'm like, how because Damian Wayne's a dark character and he's also an anti-hero.
right.
So that's an interesting take. Like how far does Batman let him take things? And I guess that's really the story. Like I've done these bad things, but my son's like he doesn't care. He's like a sociopath.
Right.
So how do I raise this kid that's like hungry for violence?
Yeah. I mean, that could be interesting because one of the things about Batman is that there's almost like this Bat verse, kind of like there's a Spider verse
Yeah,
of characters. I mean, you've got like just Batman, you've got like Nightwing and
Catwoman, yeah,
Catwoman, yeah, and like Batgirl, Batwoman,
yeah.
Red Hood. I mean, all kinds of different
Hmm.
characters that they can pull from. Plus the great villains gallery, which is just fantastic as well. So it's
Even
almost like with
even Suicide Squad, I guess now part of the Batman family because Harley Quinn and
right,
Poison Ivy, I guess, are heroes now.
right,
So,
yeah,
which
right.
is weird.
Well, yeah, because I mean, the Harley Quinn, that's another one. Like, we were talking about like characters that are kind of our characters. And I think, I remember, coming home from school watching the old Batman cartoon. I didn't realize that Harley Quinn was invented for that cartoon.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, in a way, for a lot of people that were, kind of grew up watching those and then went into the Christian Bale movies, I suppose, especially if we think for people that are younger than us who, were born kind of more in like the sort of the mid 80s when they wouldn't have been quite old enough for a lot of the Batman stuff, especially like the 89 Batman. But like, they kind of grew up with that 90s Batman cartoon. And then the Christian
right.
Bale was like almost their Batman. Yeah, that Harley Quinn character, it's going to be, yeah, I think Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn was one of the few real standouts for me, I think, in that DC
Hmm.
extended universe. And so
Yeah,
now, like, yeah, Lady Gaga, like I don't think they realized how much they had to do if they're gonna have Lady Gaga play that character.
I think that was a mistake to be
Yeah,
honest. The moment I heard that announcement, I was like, this is gonna be wrong.
yeah,
And I like Lady Gaga a lot. I just don't think she's Harley Quinn.
no,
But and even when I see the trailer, like, oh, this is not Harley Quinn.
right. Well, she could be Harley Quinn in a $50 million like Scorsese Taxi Driver King of Comedy sequel to the
Right,
Joker that we all love.
right.
Like I think she works better in those in indie films. It's funny because as a musician or as a pop star, right? She's like mainstream pop. She's like
Hmm.
platinum records. But like for movies, she's more of an indie. At least that's how I kind of see her. Is she's like better in those lower scale things. And I think had they kind of gone the same 50, maybe 85, 100 million or whatever, maybe not 200 million, but I think she could have played Harley Quinn in that sense. But yeah, that's the thing is that, I don't think people realize sometimes how it is when you've got a really great performance. And I think maybe Margot Robbie's, Harley Quinn, maybe people just didn't, you know, uh, think of that enough as being a standard enough that that like it would take some work for Lady Gaga to carve out her own version of that character.
Yeah, like that's the problem. 'Cause I feel like Margot Robbie like pretty much embodied that character,
Yeah.
and she understood that character. And I feel like this is like I respect the fact they want to kind of take it to a different direction. But I feel like Harley Quinn's been established as one thing for like
Yeah.
since 1992, really.
Right.
So see, to change it now is kind of like why, like without any sort of explanation, why are we changing it?
Yeah.
Like, is this, like, and especially now when you have a cartoon on Max that's a big hit.
Oh,
That's
right.
about
That's
Harley
right.
Quinn. Like, and it's like, who is it? Like, she's like Harley Quinn in name only. There's no reason why. Otherwise, why is she this character? So that's my issue with it.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe like the thing is we're gonna learn is that you get the guy who makes the Hangover and who makes the old school and stuff like that, and he hits it out of the park with one movie. I don't know. I feel like too, like with HBO and them, it seems like they're always stingy with budgets and stuff, but yet they tell Todd Phillips, here's $200 million, make another movie. And it's like, I mean, because I was thinking about with Taxi Driver, if Scorsese had ever made a sequel to Taxi Driver, and I thought, what the sequel would be is maybe Travis Bickle goes out to LA and it would be like early 80s gritty LA and Hollywood and stuff like that. And that's maybe what it would take. And that actually might have worked, because you obviously think of like Taxi Driver 2, like, who would do Taxi Driver 2, right? Like that just says that, it seems like a crazy idea. But then when I thought about it, I was like, okay, maybe that's it. But that's kind of what they're expecting here from a second Joker movie is that, okay, we made this really great mixture of Batman combined with Taxi Driver and the King of Comedy. We kind of mixed those
Right.
those things together in a way that was like really organic and authentic that people it really resonated with a lot of people. How do we make a sequel to that? And I guess the Hangover guy was like, "We'll make a musical." I didn't realize it was a musical. I didn't know that was that it had that many musical numbers and
It,
stuff like that in it.
it's a musical mixed with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I guess that's the sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah, from what I hear, it's like 15 songs in the movie.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it's cover songs. It's not like original songs.
Right.
So I guess they're singing. I guess to kind of like express themselves. I guess through singing. I'm just wondering like why I mean maybe they explain it in the movie. But I just feel like as of now, I'm like there's really no point in this. Like I guess you have Lady Gaga. She has to sing in it. I guess that's the reason. I guess because the song "Star Is Born" did so well, so let's have her sing again. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's weird. I'm hoping is good. I don't think it's gonna be as good as the original, the first one. And I don't think it's gonna make $1 billion. The first one did either.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping it's still a good watchable movie. I just think that was a misfire.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting with these movies, like how, like, okay, you make the first one and it's almost like thinking about like the Batman, the Christian Bale Batmans or even the Tim Burton ones, right? It's like Tim Burton, he makes the first one and he didn't want to make a sequel. And
Right.
Warner threw so much money at him that he's like, okay, well, if you're gonna throw this much money at me, I'm gonna make my own sets. I'm gonna spend all this money. But it actually worked out that they gave him that massive budget because I mean the sets in that movie are beautiful, and the Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer performances are fantastic, and even Christopher Walken, and I mean the penguins marching around with bombs on them and stuff like that. Like it's one of my favorite comic book movies ever. Is that
Yeah.
Batman Returns? I've
Mhm.
always loved that one. But it's like this example of when you get the great budget. Because I know Ryan Reynolds had said about doing Deadpool. He was like, I didn't want Marvel to give us a blank check. I wanted a budget of some sort because the budget is what helped us make. He thought the budgets that Fox gave them made for better movies. Because they
Yeah.
they they had to be more creative, and to be fair, I mean, 200 million sounds like a lot of money for a movie, but that's what that Deadpool and Wolverine movie was just 200 million, and they're doing a much bigger scope of like special effects and
All the cameos they had to bring in. That's a lot of money
right,
right there.
exactly. So in a way, that their 200 is like a budget 200, whereas it sounds like for the Joker, that 200 sounds exorbitant.
Yeah. I'm just hoping it's good. That's all I can say. I'm hoping it's good.
Yeah,
Because the trailer, like, oh, I watched the trailer, I go, yeah, this looks fine, but I'm like, I'm not excited for it, to be honest
right.
with you. Like the
No,
first film, I was like so excited for it. This one, I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah, like I didn't catch the first one until after. I mean, everybody talked about. I was like, all right, I've got to finally see it. I've got to finally do it. And I did watch it, and I was like, wow, this is that good. This is like everything people said about it. I mean that rarely happens. I think that people really like a movie that I'm not a fan of. I will say I wasn't as big a fan of The Dark Knight as a lot of people were.
Interesting.
But it's like I also I guess one of the things I can I even though I wasn't as big of a fan of that movie, I recognize why people were. I guess that's sometimes that's the thing that happens is that like you can even if it doesn't resonate with me, sometimes with a movie like that I can say like I get why people like this movie. I get why people are fans of it. Um, but like yeah, that Joker one, it was like yeah, I finally watched it and I was like yeah, this is exactly you know This should have been more, it's funny because I was thinking like that would change how many people made comic book movies, but actually DC, looked or sorry, Warner looked at it and instead of saying like, yeah, let's make another one of these. Like John Wick, right? John Wick 2 is only slightly more expensive and bigger than the first John Wick. Um, that's probably what they should have done. They should have just incrementally moved up, but no, they threw $200 million in that. Yeah, I'm going to be curious to see it now. I wasn't going to see it in the theater. I wasn't planning on. I was going to do the Venom movie instead. And
Yeah.
and then Blade is playing at one of the theaters here in Philly in mid-October. So I haven't seen
Okay.
that in the theater
Cool.
since it came out. So I was like, oh, I got to see that in the theater. So I was like figuring out like how many, because part of it is money, part of it because my sister and brother-in-law gave me a Fandango card. So I do have a couple. I've got a couple movies I can go see for free or that are already paid for on a gift card. So it's not like I have to budget so much. But that was my plan, was I was going to do the Venom movie, and then when I saw that Blade was coming, I was like, oh, I got to do that too. So I wasn't planning on doing Joker, but I don't know. Maybe I'll make a trip over and see it, when it comes out.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah. The Venom one actually looks kind of fun.
Yeah,
Um. So October should be an interesting month
yeah,
with comic book movies because they
yeah.
both come out the same month. So that's another weird thing too. Like they're both in October. I'm surprised the Joker's in October, to be honest. I feel like, I guess because the last one came out in October.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the Marvels came out. Didn't no no the Marvels. I remember
it was
sorry,
in
'cause
November. That was in
November because
November,
I
wasn't
saw
it?
it during Thanksgiving week
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
theater. Yeah, that's right. Because I caught a weekday matinee because I was Thanksgiving week I was off, so I was just went in. That actually was kind of a fuller movie than I'm used because again my weekday my daytime matinees, they usually aren't that full even for like I think Deadpool Wolverine was a quarter full. That's like the fullest the theater has been that I've been in, I think.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because again I pick times when nobody's there because I'm usually
Uh,
like the earliest matinee. That's what I usually do.
like the 10 o'clock showing, like that kind of
Yeah, yeah,
showing.
like Deadpool and Wolverine. I think it was like a 10:30 showing, and it was one of those deals where like I woke up tired on. It was like a Sunday morning, and I woke up and I was like, it was like 8:30 ish, and I was like, man, I got to get moving. If I'm like, you want to get there, I got to get there at a good amount of time so I can get in and get my soda and everything. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I don't really feel it. And then I was like, no, it was like 9ish. I was like, I can still, if I leave, get going, I can. It was like one of those things where it was like. I didn't think I was going to do it. I didn't like I was going to think I was going to sleep in or something like that and go to a later showing, and then I just went for it and I got there like just in time. It was one of those deals where like I would have probably missed the actually no because I would have come in for the trailers, but it was one of those things where like they just brought another person to work behind the counter to because I had to get my popcorn and soda.
Uh,
That if they hadn't brought in that second person, I think I would have been late for it. I think I would have uh, come in while like the movie had just started. So yeah, so it was, but it was still kind of early for me on a Sunday. 10:30 in the morning was still kind of yeah,
yeah,
uh, you know,
super early.
yeah, it definitely it doesn't sound that early, especially for people listening who have kids. I'm sure your kids get you up a lot earlier on a Sunday morning. But I know when I was that age, my parents sent my sister and I to Sunday school, so that was how they dealt with their morning, so they could relax in the morning. Was they just like schlepped us off to church. But yeah, but yeah, that's usually what I do though. Is I'll do like Blade. I won't have a choice. Blade is going to be like a 7 p.m. showing at the
No.
one of the indie theaters. But usually that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, if that works for you. Like they did the showing I went for Deadpool Wolverine. It was pretty much like full. I think it was like
Yeah,
maybe 95% full.
yeah,
That was like the first. That was the first showing of the movie.
yeah,
So I was like, once I saw that, this movie's making money. It's like
yeah,
this is early. Like, wow, if people, this many people are here for it. Like this movie's gonna make a lot of money, and it
yeah.
did. So
Well, I had planned to see it not so I ended up seeing I think the weekend no it was so I didn't get to see it the weekend it came out. It was the weekend after that I saw it, and it was
uh,
one of those things where I was like I was gonna maybe wait even longer than that to see it, but it was just like I started hearing people talking about it on the street even. Like I don't remember the
Yeah,
last time I
yeah.
heard people talking about a movie on the street, and I was like, there's no way I'm gonna escape spoilers if I don't go see it. Luckily, like people I knew who had seen it already, they didn't tell me anything. They were just like, listen, you got to see the movie because we want to be able to talk about these things. And so I went that weekend after, and because yeah, I don't remember the last time a movie. It might have been like maybe like Avengers Endgame or something like that, where people were talking about the movie to that degree that like you could hear people on the street just talking about it.
It was probably that or No Way Home. Probably one of the two.
Yeah, No Way Home. That was another. Yeah,
Because
exactly.
those are like event movies.
Yeah,
You have to see like the first week it comes out.
yeah,
But you get
yeah.
spoiled. Like I remember when the Deadpool Wolverine came out, like they were showing like clips on YouTube. Like it was like the movie hadn't come out yet. It's like,
Right.
what the hell is this? I like not watched YouTube for like 3 days, so I
Right.
wouldn't see anything. I'm not on TikTok, so I don't have to worry about that. But I'm like,
Yeah.
good lord, my friends like, oh, they have TikTok. Like, my God, I'm seeing all these clips on TikTok. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. No, because the thing is, if you get those things spoiled for you, it's like especially that scene where they have the big fight in the car, and they kind
Mm-hmm.
of get knocked out. The car gets towed away, and then they wake up in that house, and
Yeah,
Wolverine starts drinking. If you've got that spoiled for you, it doesn't land the same way it does when they start walking in. So like we knew Elektra, right? We knew Jennifer Garner was going to be in the movie. We'd heard about that was something they'd already teased, they'd already told us, so we expected that. So she walks in, but then when Blade walks in, it's
yeah, I was shocked.
yeah, I wasn't. So, like, if somebody had spoiled
Whoa.
that for me, like, if somebody had said, like, hey, Matt, dude, you got to see Wesley Snipes' Blade is in it wouldn't have been the same thing. And then I was like, well, who's this third person going to be? And I think I had heard something about Gambit, like, before the movie came out, that they were kind of teasing that bit. So I wasn't as surprised, but the Blade thing was just, I mean, yeah, like I said, I needed Nicolas Cage as Ghost Rider to really complete it, but that was just beautiful.
And they have spoiled the X-23 appearance in the trailer, the last trailer they put out. I was like, oh,
That's
really?
right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then like Chris Evans, I mean
Yeah.
that they
He was
don't
another
spoil.
one that was surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and the way they do that one is just beautiful too. Yeah, so yeah, it is one of those things where like I think Kevin Feige, or I would never able to pronounce his name properly, but after having a lackluster year, which it's funny we say a lackluster year for Marvel, but they still had like that Guardians of the Galaxy movie still almost like made over $800 million.
Yeah, made a lot of
So
money. Yeah.
yeah, so just because the other ones didn't do as well and Secret Invasion didn't do as well, they were like, oh well, we're in trouble. And I guess that again the Jonathan Majors thing too, but you know they just nailed it with the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. They got it right, and they definitely like they one, I think that for Sony, right? Sony's like looking at it like, oh man, I don't think we've got a Deadpool and Wolverine as these next two movies. And then DC, I mean, I think if you're James Gunn, you've got to be looking at that going like, is our Superman going to do that well? I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping it's good. I'm
Yeah,
hoping it works out for them because they need something over there.
yeah,
And I do want to see that Batman movie that they have planned because I feel like that's going to be an interesting, different look at Batman as a father.
yeah.
I want to see that. So yeah, they still have Peacemaker that's still coming out. So now that's the other thing, like the whole continuity. Like, why is it still the same universe?
Well,
Because because Peacemaker is still a part of this new universe. Like I don't understand. Like
right, because James Gunn, I think apparently he was mad that they used the Peacemaker characters in Black Adam. Uh, he didn't want them used in any of that stuff. Yeah, I
yeah,
guess he was planning on doing this. So yeah, because what happens, right? What is it? The Flash movie does poorly, and they finally just say, okay, James Gunn, save us. Can you just
yeah,
do it? It's going to be interesting to see if he can, because I mean he created something out of nothing with Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that's the magic maybe that they want. But DC's not nothing, right? I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, that's such that was like one of those ones that I remember as a kid, like, that would be on the rack at the gas station or something. And I was like, well, I don't want Guardians of the Galaxy, right? I mean, get one of these four Spider-Man books that are out. That's more of what I'm looking for. And he turned that thing into gold. And but
hmm
DC, these aren't nothing characters that you turn into gold. These are all established characters that have reputations and history and all of that stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, because now he's in the TV show, like the Green Lantern TV show. Like that's the big news coming out like this week.
Yeah.
They're like pretty much casting for that, and like I said, I'm hoping it works. Like I feel like it's a very big endeavor for him because if he fails, it's all on him,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
pretty much gonna ruin his career at that point. Like he's already like, hey, you fucked up Superman, all these other characters. Like who else can we blame but you?
Right. Yeah.
It's your vision.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm hoping I think Superman will do. I'm not gonna say it's gonna like be a big blockbuster, but I think it'll do well enough where we could get things off the ground.
Yeah.
I think out of curiosity, people will go see it.
Well, yeah, there's that because I mean that was what the Superman Returns. I remember in '06 people having a
Mm-hmm.
similar mindset. Which again, we're looking at this movie we just talked about here, Punisher Warzone came out in '08. We kind of forget that that was '06. It was like DC was trying to figure out which one to do. They had Superman Returns, which nobody really knew what it was. Was it a sequel? Was it a replacement for Part Three? Was it a soft reboot? Whereas Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale had a very clear vision for what Batman was going to be in Batman Begins, and so
Right.
DC decided to go with the Batman one and let that one go, and then Marvel turns around and says, "Yeah, well now you got to start doing an extended universe of your characters because we just, we've blown past you because think about this '08, right? This is when Iron Man comes out.
Mhm.
Dark Knight is the #1 movie, and then by 2012, I think, right, it's 2012 when Avengers comes out.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Returns or Dark Knight Rises, that one still does well, but Avengers had passed it, and they were just
Yeah.
at that point DC knew like we got to do something. So then it was like, okay, well now this Man of Steel, that's going to be the start of our DC universe, and we're going to put everybody together too and do our own Avengers thing. But they had never chased it before. DC had never chased Marvel. They had always been ahead of. I mean, yes, I guess maybe during the Spider-Man phase, right, with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, maybe
Yeah.
DC was chasing, but for the most part, right, Superman, Batman, and then the second Batman, those were dominant movies, and DC didn't have to worry about Marvel. Now it's like, yeah, now they're kind of desperate, right? They got to really make this one work.
And it's funny because they had all these characters. Warner Bros. Had all these characters, like they had all the rights to them, and they never used like anyone but Superman and Batman.
Yeah,
You had Wonder Woman, you had Green Lantern, you had like Martian Manhunter, Flash, all these other characters. Like, why did you use them before?
right.
And then
Yes,
you're like, well, let's do now. They did Avengers. Let's do it Justice League and not introduce any of these characters and do it all in one movie. Like, why did you do that? Like,
right,
be patient. Like, who cares? Like, if it's a movie's good, if people don't go watch it anyway, they don't care about who does what first.
right. Yeah,
So I'm like, it's they looked that with Wonder Woman when they did the Batman vs Superman. They looked that with that,
yeah,
but like the Flash and Aquaman, which surprisingly did very well the first movie. Um, the second one not so much. Even though I thought the second one was actually not that bad.
yeah.
But yeah, it's funny how they're playing catch up when they had these characters the whole time.
Yeah. 'Cause they never thought they needed them. They never thought they had to use them, And like Wonder Woman, for example. I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean, it's either her or Green Lantern. It's like their #3, I think.
Yeah, I think it's probably Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and I mean they've always had her there. I mean, I was joking that the second Superman should have had Wonder Woman show up and make like Lois Lane and Superman get married, right? And then like Linda Carter show up with Wagner at the wedding. That would have been a fun thing. Where like Wonder Woman's always, like you said, she's always been there, and they just never it was like never this thought of like, oh well, Wonder Woman, let's make a Wonder Woman movie. It's like, but then it was like almost like Marvel forced them. Marvel's like, no, you got to make a Wonder Woman movie now because you got to start pulling out all your characters because you can't just sit on Batman and Superman anymore. You need to use everybody. But yeah, like you said, they've always had them there. They've always, the Green Lantern. It's like, oh well, the Ryan Reynolds one did bad, so that's it. We're not doing any more Green Lantern. And it was like, but yeah, you needed him. You needed him in these, like
Yeah,
you said, Martian Manhunter. It's like, well, we'll put him in the Supergirl TV series. Yeah, or Smallville will have Martian Manhunter, but not, yeah, not, um, not in our DC extended universe. Even though he's like one of like the most like notable like when you think of like the Justice League, it's like there's Martian Manhunter is right there in the collage of
Mm-hmm.
characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even in the villains in Superman, though, the original, the Christopher Reeve, like why wasn't Brainiac in part three? Why was it like this random supercomputer?
Yeah.
In
Well, because right, 'cause
part
that was
four,
the plan,
that
right?
yeah, but part four, who was this villain? Why you not use like Bizarro?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Because
just weird.
that was the plan, right? They wanted a Brainiac in
Yeah,
part three,
part three.
and
Yeah.
and then I get Warner was like, well, that's going to cost too much money. You got too many things going on there, and so they scrapped it. And it's like, yeah, because like I think like Brainiac gets used in all the TV series. I think Lois and Clark had a Brainiac. They had a Mister McPluxic. They had a
Mm-hmm.
Bizarro. I think Smallville also had those characters, and
Yep.
this new one, Superman and Lois. So it's like the TV shows had no problem using them, but it's like the movies. It's like, well, it's either Lex Luthor or we don't have anybody. Um, you
Ooh, but
know,
let's just hire a coked up Richard Pryor. He'll make
yeah,
up for it.
exactly
Like
right.
what?
Right. Right. Because he made some joke on Johnny Carson that he wanted to do a Superman movie, and the Salkinds, the producers, they saw that and they're like, "Well, let's put him in the movie." And he
Oh
was like,
God.
and he was bad because he wanted to do a more dramatic role, and
Yeah.
he's watching the movie and he's like, "Wait a second, this is a comedy. Like, what? This isn't Superman. I thought I was going to do Superman 1 or 2. I didn't know I was doing a comedy."
Let's
Yeah.
have Red Kryptonite make Superman drunk.
Right, exactly.
Like what? Like, what?
Exactly right. Right. Tar, right? He's a cigarette package and he's like, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
put tar. Yeah. And I mean,
Oh,
like, we're talking about the Patton scene in this movie, Punisher Warzone, Richard Pryor has his own Patton scene and in
oh, that's right.
right.
Yeah.
He just shows up with the red kryptonite.
Yeah. Oh, that stupid movie. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's one of the things, right? Because everybody knows Superman 3, everybody knows Superman 4, everybody knows a lot of these ones we were talking about. Whereas Punisher Warzone is one that is like it's kind of buried. And I mean,
Yeah.
again, I think people who listen to the podcast they know Punisher Warzone. And I think for a lot of people it's in their top comic book movie list. But yeah, for people out there, especially MCU fans who haven't really dug into some of the non-MCU movies that came out before. This for me, this is one of the best.
Yeah. Yeah, this should be watched at least once. If
Yeah,
you're a comic book fan, especially if you're a Punisher fan, definitely watch this. You should probably own it on some
yeah,
sort of format. It's probably of the three movies, it's probably the best one.
yeah, yeah. I
And
agree.
it captures the character more faithfully than the other two movies do.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, I'm partial to Dolph Lundgren because I always loved Dolph Lundgren, but
Yeah,
this is the Punisher.
yeah, yeah.
Ray Stevenson is the Punisher. He again, he's that face I remember on the cover of the Punisher Warzone issue 1 when that came out, like 91, 92.
And even the Jigsaw is a good villain for the movie too. So
Yeah.
you can have a good hero without a good villain. So this film has that. Yeah, does it all work? No, but I think for the most part, it's just a fun time, and it's like less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
Super violent, looks good. The acting is good. Like, there's no reason not to watch this. To be honest, if you're an action film lover, definitely check it out.
Yeah. And the Pluto version, yeah, it's got commercials, but it's not edited, which is,
Yeah,
which is a good thing. It's got all the violence and gore, at
yeah.
least. But yeah, I agree with you too that like, yeah, if you're a comic book movie fan and you've got a collection of comic book movies, this is one to have a copy of. Yeah, I don't know if it's only if it's just a regular DVD. I wonder if there must be a Blu-ray of it at least.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I have the DVD. I don't have the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there is one.
No,
This
maybe
should be,
not.
I would think.
Yeah. I mean, really, this should be on Hulu. I understand Disney Plus maybe not wanting it on there, but but I guess because it's Lionsgate, so they don't really. I don't know if they have the rights to it. They have the rights to the Punisher character, but not to a movie like this.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But this will fit right in on Hulu.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely worth everybody checking out for sure. Yeah. Freddie's, we're wrapping up here. Anything that you wanted to plug?
Not really. Nothing's going on.
All right.
But maybe next time I pop on here, we'll have things to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, we've got, we're probably good with it's October now. So probably one more time before the year. So we'll see kind of how things went in October with those comic book movies. Probably the next time we chat,
Yeah.
we'll have a better sense of all of those there. So
Fingers crossed.
exactly. Well, thank you again for coming on. This was a really fun conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. And thank you for picking this movie. It's been so long since I had watched it. And I had a reason to watch it. So
Yeah, well, I was thinking because a couple times, the last two times you were on, we were talking about comic book movies anyway, as it was, and I was like,
yeah.
well, what's a good one to discuss on here? Because I talked about a couple others before with Mitch from Video Vacuum. We did like the Return of Swamp Thing, and we did Ghost
Mm,
Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. So we did the other Marvel Knights imprint, and I was like, well, what's another one? And I was like, I saw this was on Pluto, and I was like, okay, this would be a perfect one for us to chat about. So yeah, so I'm glad you wanted to talk about it because yeah, definitely a fun conversation.
yeah. Great choice.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and thank you everybody for listening. And we'll be back soon. All right. Bye, everyone.